All right.
Early. That's a first. And the crowd continues.
All right, we're going to call to order our Thursday, April 4th, 2019 Parks and Recreation Commission meeting at 6 o'clock by my watch. Please join us. Are we going to do roll call first or allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance first.
Okay. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, now I think we're ready.
Now we can do roll. Commissioner Murphy,
I'm here.
present.
Yeah.
Commissioner Jacobson,
Present.
Vice Chair Taylor,
Present.
Chair Intner,
Here.
Commissioner Firestone, here. Commissioner Comerford.
Present.
All are present this evening.
Excellent. Okay.
Welcome to our audience. We don't get this many people
That's
here
very
on a
nice.
Thursday night.
So next on the agenda is public comments, which would be general public comments. So
Of
do
those
we-
things
I-
not listed on the
Not
agenda.
listed on the agenda, so, and I don't think we have any cards. But, okay.
No, we
So
do not
then,
have
our
any.
next item, before we move on, we're gonna make a small change to the agenda. We're gonna move item 8B, which is pickleball, up to 8A above there, so,
That's a great idea.
yeah. Okay, but then back to item number 4, presentations.
Yes.
And we have Melissa White here, who's going to give us a
She
presentation about
is.
horsemanship.
Melissa White is here. We've invited her, as we have from time to time, we've invited recreation instructors to come and speak to the commission. And so welcome, Miss Melissa White.
Yes, thank you
Thank
for
you for
coming.
coming. And so she's going to tell you a little bit about herself.
Well, thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you for inviting me. My name is, I feel awkward having my back to.
Yeah, you can't do both. Yeah, unfortunately.
Anyway, my name is Melissa White, and the name of my business is Western Trail Rides. So a little bit about myself, briefly. I was born in Santa Paula, native, third generation. Once I was out of college, I taught school and went into the administrative side of my field for 18 years. Horses has always been my passion. I turned 35 years old and I said, it is time to start making my dreams come true. So I took my first horseback ride lesson. I took lessons for a year. A year after that, I bought my first horse bow. Then I began to teach what I had learned. The next year, I bought my other 2 horses, Willing Spirit and McGinnis. Then Western Trail Rides was born. Western Trail Rides is now 20 years strong this year. And this year also marks my 13th anniversary of working through the Ojai Rec Department. It is my pleasure and my honor to serve this community with my passion through Western Trail Rides. We provide horsemanship classes on Wednesday or Friday of each week, and classes run in 5-week sessions. They are provided the months September through May, and then in June, we really start horsing around with our horse camps. So June through August, we provide horse camps for children in our community. We also get children out of state and other places because they're visiting grandma and grandpa and aunts and uncles in town. So it's fun. Horsemanship classes, I like multi-age, is for people that are 6 years and older. Adults are welcome to join. Our last class, we had I had a 6, an 8-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 61-year-old. And so it was fun. I really like working with multi-generations. I just believe it's appropriate and passing on knowledge from generation to generation. So horsemanship has a lot of things to offer other than just riding a horse. The pictures will show the multi-generation of our class. The pictures will also show the setting of the outdoor classroom. So anyway, horsemanship provides responsibility, it opportunity to practice patience, building teams, establishing relationships with the participants, as well as relationships between the human and the horses. Horsemanship, I believe, teaches a lot of life skills that will help our children, builds confidence, and gives them courage to try other things in their life, like math and reading or learning how to ride a bike. It takes the focus off of self and it puts it on the other members in the class and also working with the large animals. My classroom is outdoors and it just is in a beautiful place, accentuating the beauty of our Ojai Valley. So our new brochure is coming out this summer, and classes are going to be starting at the end of this month for the horsemanship classes. So I look forward to seeing you out at the ranch, maybe your friends, maybe your neighbors, possibly family members. So anyway, it provides activity for all ages. I want to thank you so much for inviting me here tonight. Thank you for sharing your time with me. And I look forward to seeing you out on the ranch soon.
Question. Along with the classes that you offer, do you guys also offer trail rides or that type of thing?
So Western Trail Rides provides private lessons, and it also provides trail rides out in the Ojai Land Conservancy.
Okay,
I do personal rides for 1 or 2 riders.
perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. So if you'd like to take a virtual tour, you can go on westerntrailrides.org, or you can call the rec department. Do we have any other questions tonight?
Yes. Well, thank you for coming, first of all, and providing all this. Are you, for the rec department classes, are you the instructor? Are there other instructors?
I am the instructor.
Okay.
So the staff consists of me, 3 amazing horses.
Got it. And are you first aid CPR certified? That's some, okay. That's good to know because that's come up in discussion here. A concern, I think, is that with contractors to the rec department, they're not necessarily certified, and this seems like an important area to have certification. So
Yes.
it's good to know.
So they kind of just traveled along with me as being a school teacher. I just have always kept up my certification.
Okay.
We have to be safe in order to have fun.
Great.
Thank you. Yes.
And is there something that the students sign or their parents sign that they won't hold the Ojai Park and Rec responsible if there's any kind of an accident or whatever? I'm a horseback rider, so I know they're unpredictable.
Well, absolutely.
Horses are unpredictable.
And thank you for asking. So we double dip in that area. We have the paperwork done by the rec department before they come to class. And then I have a copy of that on site. And then when they come to me for class, they fill out a waiver, a release of liability. And if you would like me to provide a copy of that to the rec department, I would.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah.
So
So-
I'd be glad to do that. So we have the double deal going on, one from the rec department and one from me.
And as independent contractors, just for informational purposes, they provide their own insurance as well, their own liability insurance.
Now, it also looked like from the pictures that all the horses are full-grown adult horses, or do the littler students, are they on ponies, or are they all on the same size?
Yes, good question. So I kind of have small, medium, and large. The brown one, he's part of my original trio that I started 20 years ago. And so he is a mature horse. Trigger is a mature horse. And Levi is a mature horse, meaning they're double digit in age. No youngsters. And the boys, the horses, are used to being around children and
Okay.
people because we've done this for so many years.
Perfect.
And the children are not, I'm always with them when they're with the horses.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Great, thank you.
And we have a contained area around him where I teach, and we have a pasture area where I teach. And then as they progress, there's trails on the property around the ranch as well.
That's great.
And they really, we walk. I don't do the trot and the canter and all that jazz. They can get their own horse someday.
Right.
Well, Well, thanks so
Thanks
much
very
for
much.
coming
Thank you
in.
very
Yeah.
much.
Great.
Thank you all
Miss
for
Great
Melissa.
presentation.
And have a great spring and a good meeting.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank
Thanks so
you.
much.
Thanks, Melissa.
Bye.
Take care. Okay, well, that was great. Okay, next would be police department report, but I don't see anyone tonight, so
No
we'll
one
move
here
on.
this evening.
Public works report, we don't really have one.
Nothing.
Okay, so moving on. Okay, minutes. Has everybody got
I
a
do
copy
have
and had a
those.
chance to review?
And if they look good, Chair Intner, you're welcome to sign those if they get approved, so we can, we tend to forget that
Yes, I
by
know.
the end of the meeting.
The end of the
You can
meeting.
Sign it and pass it down to Allison.
Any changes, anyone see anything?
Mm-mm.
Anybody want to make a motion?
No, I move that the minutes be accepted as written.
I'll second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, aye. Okay, great. Okay, if you want to hand them down, I'll sign them now.
Yeah. You could sign
Okay,
one
so
you have.
that brings us to our first
I didn't write on it.
discussion item, which will be pickleball. And so we are open for public comment. Tim, do you want to start off, or come on up? Thanks for coming tonight.
So, I'm the one that kind of started this thing, several years ago. I've been playing for, about 4 years now, since 2015. And as you can see, some other places throughout the county, I was driving to go play pickleball. So I would drive to Santa Barbara, Rancho Cordero, Parks and Rec, Ventura, Pleasant Valley, and also I've been at the city of Fort Wayne's facilities. So as I was playing at these places, I thought to myself, gosh, we don't have anything like this in Ojai. Wouldn't it be great to have something like this in town for everyone to enjoy? So, I think it's been about a year now since I've approached the city about possibly using a court at Libby, which you guys allowed us to do, and we appreciate that. We're also using a court at Matilla Hall, and that has grown considerably. Since I was here the last time, I think we had 4 or 5 people that were signed up. Now we have over 60 people signed up. A lot of older people.
Easy.
I'm there too.
Yeah, right.
A lot of ex-tennis players are coming out and playing too. So they're finding out that that's real enjoyable. They can play that, they don't have to run, and there's not as much space they have to cover in doing that. So before you, I put together a couple, 3 sheets, some information on pickleball, a little survey that I've done recently for the usage at Libby, and then some rules in a nutshell, and then a flyer that has our play dates on it, when we need them there and when we play. So, it's growing, it's a lot of fun. I'd like to see all of you out here. I've seen some faces over there, which has been good. And it's just a great sport, a great way to meet other people. I've met so many nice people by getting this going. There's so many people out there. So that's been nice. And exercise. For me, that's what I really enjoy, is getting out and doing any kind of activity, whatever it may be. But this is a great sport for older people, but also younger people too. And I think that this could go hand in hand with tennis. I'm not here to try to take over one sport over another. I'm here to try to add to what any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Yeah, I do, and I've been out there, so I'm an avid supporter of what you've done, and I think you deserve some credit for basically getting this started and growing it to where it is now. I mean, it's really huge. Now, just a quick question: how many of y'all out there are retired? Okay, so my question is, are most of your players in the afternoon? I noticed you're trying to get some morning groups going. What's the ratio of morning to evening players?
I think if I had a place to play in the morning,
Yeah.
I would have more people come because of the weather, the time. It's cooler.
Yeah.
I'd also like to have a place in the evening where working people that work till 5, because a lot of time, especially in the winter time, 5 o'clock it's dark.
Yeah.
In the winter months. So during spring and summer months, an evening location would be great, so that working people could come and also play. You asked about numbers. I'd say it's like 50-50 even.
Now, and forgive me, because I've played both and I just don't remember the sizes. The 2 courts that are out at Soul Park, are those usable for pickleball as well? I think paddle tennis, if I remember right.
I haven't been out there in so long.
Okay,
I don't go out there.
There's one pickleball court in Soul Park.
okay.
The rest are paddle tennis.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if those are being used or if they could
The
be,
problem with all of 2, let me see, I think there's 2, I'm sorry, 2.
Do you mind coming up to the dais?
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Tim,
No, you can both, you can
You
be
both
there.
stand
you
there.
can
So
be
we
there
can
together.
hear.
It's a
You
team
can be there
effort.
together.
Team effort, Jim.
It's just because it's recording, and
You
that way
can't
when I do
hear.
the minutes, I can hear you later. And then anybody who comes up, if you could also share your name, that's really helpful.
I haven't played paddle tennis at Soul Park, I've played pickleball there. And I've seen one court there being used, the other 1 or 2 not, because the court is unlevel, there's big
right.
cracks, and they're not playable.
Yeah.
So work would have to be done to make.
So basically, there's only 1 court then,
Yeah.
is what you're saying.
And then what we play on at Matilaha,
Mm-hmm.
which is, we have to put chalk down.
Right.
Although that's become problematic, so we put little pieces of masking tape, blue masking tape down each time we play and have to pull it back up.
Right.
It's a commitment.
It's an effort. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thanks.
Thank you.
I would like to second what Pat said regarding Tim. I mean, he has done an incredible, incredible job in getting this sport going. You've been absolutely amazing. And for people who have never played it, he's out there with so much patience, telling them what to do, how to score, et cetera, et cetera. So everything that you've done, Tim, has been valid, and we all definitely are for you and appreciate it.
Do we have anyone else who'd like to come up and make public comment?
I'd like to say one more thing.
Yeah,
Please.
So,
come on up.
my name is Jim McCarthy.
Thank you.
And I live in Miners Oaks, and I started playing pickleball in October. And it's just perfect for me, and I also want to thank Tim. I thank him, I feel so grateful because he's helped me a lot and a lot of other people. But my point here is that before I retired in October, I was biking back and forth to work from Miners Oaks to downtown and passing the tennis courts. And on my way home from work, it wasn't all that frequent that I saw somebody playing. Not that there aren't people playing in the tennis, but I know in the evenings there's more people. But then you go to Matilaha, at 3 o'clock, 3:30, and there's, anywhere from, well, today there were four of us. That's the minimum I've ever seen. It's usually more like 8 to 12 or more, and then again, more some on Saturdays. So it's you may have heard this, but it's the fastest growing sport in the
Yeah.
country.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's all I want to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim, first of all, thank you. Like everyone else said, maybe this is great to see this much engagement. We'll get there. Sorry. Just I don't think anyone who's watching this can see, but there's about 15 people in the audience, which is I mean, a great sign.
Great turnout, yeah.
We never have that kind of turnout at our meetings, so that says something about the sport itself and what's going on. I was going to ask, you put all this information together, and again, the people watching on the computer or on the TV aren't going to see this, so maybe you could summarize some of the information in here for us.
Sure. So, as was mentioned, pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the nation. Right now, they claim there's over 3.1 million people playing the sport. It's just gathering momentum. It's just taking off like wildfire. A lot of the courts, tennis courts, are being converted now to pickleball courts. Santa Barbara, there's 2 permanent courts in Santa Barbara that are now dedicated. There's 8 courts there dedicated for pickleball only. And I just got an email from one of them the other day, and they're taking a 3rd court, court number 9, and they're striping it with paint to use that. So we're gonna have 12 courts there pretty soon. Rancho Canal, I spoke to the Parks and Rec gal down there that's in charge of Rancho Canal Parks and Recs. They put in 6 permanent pickleball courts there at Rancho Canal. They're beautiful. Let's see, Pleasant Valley Parks, Camarillo, they just converted, let's see, 2 of the tennis courts and put dedicated pickleball courts on those, and have a 3rd court that has a temporary one. But again, as I said earlier, this sport is just, it's taken off like crazy. And so many people can play it. Young and old people can play it, or older people. I shouldn't say old. So what I've heard in my travels, and when my wife and I traveled around, going to other cities and places, what we found out is they're always looking for venues, places to play. They need space. And I realize that that's our dilemma here, is having the space. So I get that. And I also understand that tennis is very important in this town. I've been here over 50 years, so I know it's a very important activity. But we too need a place, and I'm hoping eventually that'll happen. And I know it's gonna take time. So,
Well, that's what I see as some of the dilemma here is certainly, and I think, Soph, you can speak to this too, there's available time at Libby Park, whether it's upper or lower, where courts are open. The problem is the conversion back and forth from the tennis to the pickleball and back, because you can't stripe it for pickleball because that's going to interfere with the tennis players when the tournament comes around or whatnot, and find an usable space to build a certain number of courts. And you spoke briefly outside about how much space is needed. I would think that the plan coming forward with the multi-sport courts out at Sarasota Park could be looked at as a possible alternative, but I'm not sure. We may be a couple years out, a year out on those, who knows?
Right.
And we don't oversee Soul Park as far as I know, right?
We don't.
So that would be a county thing to try to get, if we could get those courts dealt with for folks, that might be a viable option. I know it's a little far out, but I don't think those courts, much to what you said, Jim, are being used hardly at all. And that might be something for you, Tim, to approach the county on, because we have no jurisdiction out there. And I know building specific courts is costly, where you're looking at several $100,000 to build a facility.
The 6 courts at Rancho Conejo, the Parks and Rec manager there gave me the breakdown. So for those 6 courts, it was $550,000.
Right.
But that was dirt work.
Right.
and all the
Yeah,
dirt
that
work.
sounds about right.
The whole project, yeah.
Yeah.
Now on the conversions, I talked to the guy that started pickleball there in Santa Barbara, Jim Kaufman. He said just to convert 1 tennis court to 4 pickleball courts was $12,000 to $15,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the 15 grand.
The problem is where are we subtracting a tennis court? That's the sticky part.
Yeah,
Because,
can't really.
yeah, you've got to go through every tennis court in the valley just about is used for the tennis tournament. And I'm not, and I come at you, as you know, Tim, from both ends of this argument. I was a tennis guy for a long time, and now that I'm old and slow, now I've segued into pickleball. I find it to be a real viable option. I think it's going to continue to grow in this town. The question is where and how much and where's the money going to come from. It might be good for, I don't know, somebody in the group, if they wanted to examine, I know there's a U.S. Pickleball Association, correct?
Absolutely, yes, I'm a member.
Is there grant money available from them? Will they partner up to help with money? Those are all things that might drive somebody that has the time to look into that, whether it's you or somebody else in the audience to look at. And then part of our job is to look for options, I think.
I would just like to say that regarding what Jim had said at Sarzodi Park, that maybe that would be a possibility to convert that one court so it's level. I mean, that's not going
You
to
mean
cost.
at Soul Park?
Soul Park.
Yeah.
And I think that might be a bigger discussion too, because
Yeah.
the paddleball people did quite a bit of work there at some point to create the
Soul Park.
paddleballs at
But
Sewell.
that would be something that wouldn't take an enormous amount of money and an enormous amount of time, and at least they would have another court.
I think what would be good for us to do at this point is to loop back to the beginning and have Sophocles give us a report on how it went with the trial that ran at Libby from the perspective of staff, just to
Agreed.
hear how that went, because that's an important part for us, is to how that trial went. But thank you so
100%.
much for, we may ask you more questions. Oh, and there was another comment, sorry, go ahead.
Let her, yeah.
We'll let them
Well.
go first.
My name is Yan Ling. Actually, thanks to Tim and introduced me to pickleball as well. So, I moved here 4 years ago with my husband from China, and for about 2 years or 3 years, I didn't find, because back in China I played ping pong and badminton, which here I bought some tennis rackets. Just never really got started because I think as an Asian, I guess I didn't have confidence with my arm strength or whatever. But anyway, so after Tim introduced me to pickleball, it just really got me going, and I feel I was much happier with just getting outdoor with the activities and meeting fun people. One little information I want to add, just if we look at online with the web called tournament, pickleballtournament.com, and it just shows every month there are at least, just in California, there are at least 5 to 6 tournaments going, which I think for each tournament there are hundreds of people, sometimes thousands players sign up. So, and with that much players going, of course, the nice courts, right? So with all those people going to one spot, it's definitely helping with the place, the location, with like construction, hotel, food, restaurant, and it definitely stimulates the economy. So I was thinking, we have a very famous tennis tournament here, Libby Bowl. That's one of the big events, which I think in the future, if we have nice courts, we can also make a pickleball, a very important tournament as well. Because around the county, like Santa Barbara has the River Run,
American Riviera.
Yeah, River, and also in Santa Monica they have the West Coast Classic, and just around town. I mean, it just everything is going so active here. It's very, it's going all the time. So. And about the court, I think at Matalaha right now, I think we are having a little bit difficulty to I've been playing around the courts, all the courts Tim mentioned. I've been traveling around to play on those courts as well. And to be honest, I do every time when I step on those courts, I think, gosh, I wish I I wish we have those courts like back in Ojai. So right now at Matulaha, we have we can't put the chalk down because it's just really I think it caused confusion to the students as teacher commented. So I think what we're doing right now is what's the painting tape?
Blue painters.
Yeah. So those tape actually doesn't need any much, right? So, but I mean, we're putting down and take it up. I mean, peel it up every day. So I just wish that at least right now, when the school is not in sports season, if they are not using the court, I wish we can just leave the tape for longer, or when the tennis court needs to be used by tennis player, and then we'll make sure it's clean and used. So we don't have to do that everyday thing. It's like every play. So it's like we play the 3 hours, and then we spend first hour to set up, and then the last half an hour we do the cleanup work. So yes, that's.
Well, thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for speaking. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point, because destination sports, which are people that go for tournaments, is a incredibly fast-growing economic boon for a lot of cities in the area. And it's something we talked about several months ago with soccer and the use of Soul Park and what we could do out there, if we could incorporate Soul Park into our coverage area, so to speak. But that is definitely something to look forward. I mean, we could do. I mean, there's enough people certainly that would come for a tournament, and that would be a boon for the city. But we still get back to the original argument of space and cost, and that's where I think getting back to you is how that we should. I agree with Sage. We should piggyback around a.
Yeah, you can make one more comment if you'd like, and then I think Councilmember Haney wanted to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to address that question you had about approaching USAPA.
Yeah.
There are grants available to Parks and Rec and to schools. I went to Andy Cantwell in the school district and asked him if I could incorporate this in the school district, and he wasn't really receptive to that. But there are grants available to Parks and Rec committees, just Parks and Rec departments, and schools. So that is available.
Well, you also have a new superintendent now, so you might want to revisit that.
Okay. And then, did you want to come up now, Randy, or do you want to wait? Okay.
Normally I wait till the end of the meetings for a comment on things, but I just wanted to say, one of these folks were here. Hi, Randy Haney.
Sorry. Yes.
71513 Pleasant Avenue. Gosh, this is probably been going on over 2 years now, this discussion. And it's been going on a long time. And we thank this gentleman every time he comes and speaks. And we keep telling him the same thing, go back. And I think it behooves this commission to start being a little more progressive or proactive on this. And I think it's time for you guys to say, we have enough citizens that want this, let's figure out how to do it. And I think part of the discussion could be, we're heading into the CIP time of year. So you could talk about where some funding might come from to start this. You might ask yourselves, where's a park that we could actually put it in? Now, I have a little doggy park right around the corner from me. Now, I don't know if I personally want to see a pickleball court in the middle of it, but you know something? If that's the parkland that we have and that's what we need to do, then that's what we need to do. So, it's part of that old thought about stop thinking about how you can't.
Right.
And start thinking about how you can. So I think, I remember when we started the discussion about doing a Sarasota Park build, and then we ended up doing a Libby. And I remember Carol, what's Carol's?
Belzer?
Belzer?
No, the old.
Oh, Carol Smith. On council?
No, Carlin. I'm sorry, Carlin.
Okay.
Strobel.
Strobel.
And I remember her as the council rep would come and say, you know, you keep looking for us to do something, and yet you're the commission that has to make the recommendation to us, so that we can then put it on our discussion item, and then we can actually have a public discussion. That needs to come from you. So that's part of this discussion. So I think it's appropriate that instead of sending them to the county, we send someone to the county. Okay? And if we're gonna negotiate something for Soul Park, they shouldn't be doing it, we should be doing it. And those are, and we did do it. And I know we've interacted with them before. So it's, again, it's just time, I think, that we have enough support. We have enough need, and we actually have a need for that entire facility. Whereas 5-6 years ago, we probably didn't. But we have grown. You guys have done a tremendous, the Parks Department has done a tremendous job growing their programming. And now it's time to take that to the next level. So I think that's just the normal place to go. But again, we have other land, we have other facilities in this community that if we want to look at it and we want to earmark things to it, money to it, we need to have that discussion. And that needs to start here and bring it to us. So that we, you and us, the council, can be partners in this. Okay?
And I think we took a first step, and hopefully Sophocles will fill us in on how that first step went, trying out Libby, seeing how that went, and what was going on there.
Well, I know this commission would be more than happy to ask for money for facilities.
Well, I think we have
I think
we
you
have
will
a
be.
we have a
And
recommendation
you have
waiting to
a
get on the
recommendation.
agenda as it
Yeah.
stands now. So
At least on the CIP, list, absolutely. So the pickleball group did approach the city, and specifically the recreation department, to say, hey, we're currently using Attilaha's courts, but now there's the time change. It gets dark at 5 p.m. We'd like to get to a place where there's lights. And then that obvious place was, and the only place with lit courts, is Libby Park. So we had a few discussions about it, and how would that work with taping the courts, and we talked about just using one court as a trial period for a specific period of time when it was daylight savings. And when we sprung forward, they were agreeable to go back to Matilaha, which they have. We started out with experimenting with painter's tape, and that didn't seem to work. That would come off pretty easily in the rain. I think they finally decided on chalking the lines, and for good or bad, we had lots of rain. And each time it rained, it would just wash away the lines that they had. So we had court number 6, that's one of the lower courts, dedicated for pickleball. We put a sign up there saying pickleball is from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., I think it was something like that, and it was their court, assuming there weren't tennis players already on there, because it wasn't, it was dedicated for pickleball. So the chalk lines that they put on there, they would just stay on there as long as it didn't rain and wash them away. So that was, the understanding was, it was a trial period. Let's see how it works, and go from there. But knowing that once we sprung forward, they'd go back to Matilaha, since they didn't need the tennis court lights. Because in all honesty, when you have multiple courts, multiple lines on courts, it's confusing to the players who are using, tennis players specifically, who are using the courts.
So you made the one court into 2 courts, or the one court into 4 courts?
One court into 2 courts.
2
So I
courts,
think
okay.
you can only get, correct me if I'm wrong,
Okay.
just 2 pickleball courts on 1 tennis court. Or can you get 4?
You can get 4.
If you, right.
That's what I thought,
But-
okay. But
right,
but you
that
guys
would
were
just
working with
mean
2.
that would just mean more lines on the tennis courts itself if you did 4, right? Yeah. Yeah, so that's why you just went
So
with 2.
Can I just ask
lessen
a
the
question
confusion.
on that? How many days a week was this, Tim? And were the hours 6 to 8, or where you were?
The pilot program?
Yes, the pilot program.
It was 5 days a week, Monday through Friday.
On court 6?
Correct, no
Yes.
weekends.
No weekends.
No weekends, okay.
And 6 till 8 o'clock.
6 to 10.
Yeah, 6
Oh, 6 to 10.
6 to
Oh,
10.
that would make more
And-
sense, yeah.
And we did not have the court reserved, so like Sophocles was saying, if we showed up and somebody was playing tennis, we would have to wait.
Wait until they were done,
Correct.
yeah.
So, question. I'm looking at the information that you put together here on the times and the observations. And it would seem to me, taking the tennis tournament out of the equation for the week or 2 weeks around tennis tournament period, that it wouldn't be out of bounds to suggest we could take one of those courts and convert it over to 4 pickleball courts and not disrupt.
Let me ask one question before, let's finish up that. I just want to ask some questions about feedback that we got from the trial period.
Sure.
Yeah.
Did you get feedback? Who did you get feedback from, and what was it?
So, gosh, that's a pretty tough question to answer
Yeah.
without being too. The tennis community would say that going on, if you dedicated one,
No,
even one court,
Wait till
that
he finishes.
that those lines on the court are distracting. So if a tennis group, if let's say we converted one year round with the exception of the tennis tournament, a tennis player comes out, those lines are on there. It's just distracting. So
But that's
if
my
you're
point.
asking the question, why couldn't we do a year round one?
Well-
You could, but it'd still be distracting for a tennis player to come out,
My question is
use
still
that court. and
more
it-
specifically to the trial period. I'm asking, did you get a lot of feedback specifically during that period from individuals who were using the courts?
No.
No, and that was my question. You had a
I
trial
did
period.
get some from our instructor
Who's
saying-
renting it?
who's,
Who rents the court?
who teaches our youth tennis classes. So he teaches our
Oh,
youth
on
tennis
our
classes
internal
and
program.
saying,
Okay.
yes.
On that
And,
court.
You know, of course, again, using that court is more difficult having those extra lines on there
Okay.
than it
But-
otherwise would be
But
without the
as
lines.
far as
So yes,
members of the
feedback from-
public coming back to you, you didn't
No.
receive a lot of feedback.
No.
Okay.
So my point was, you don't have 2 sets of lines. For 11 months out of the year, there are pickleball courts only. And then for the 1 month period or 6 week period around the tennis tournament, we repaint, which is going to be way cheaper than building a completely new pickleball area. And I mean, I taught down there for 15 years. I know the usage down there. It's probably even decreased since I was down there. I don't know. You probably know the numbers or stayed the same. Hard
I
to say.
wouldn't, I'd say they're probably the same. Our numbers
But
have stayed pretty level.
I'd stake my mortgage on the fact that all those courts aren't in use all the time, all year round. And one court to get pulled out for pickleball would not severely impact anybody.
No.
And the tennis players are just going to have to get used to the fact that, hey, you got to share. You know, it's sorry, and I'm living on both ends of that because I was that guy,
Well-
30 years ago. So
And I'm with
You will
Pat
find-
because I'm
yeah.
the same way. I play tennis 2 or 3 times a week, but I feel so comfortable in saying this, that, to just give up one court for the pickleball players to do their fun thing is not asking a lot. And I have been down there on my bike many times, meeting friends to play tennis, and many times there's no one on the court.
Right.
So,
The way I'm coming at it is, so we had a trial that some of the people who were concerned before we had the trial are still concerned after we had the trial. But generally, the public didn't march out from, and call in and say, there's a problem here. So that seems like a fairly successful trial from
Well-
my perspective. And then the next stage for me would be, okay, why wouldn't we extend our trial, which is what you're talking about?
yes, I am.
And chalk the lines, because that seems like a feasible thing that's not going to have a long-term effect on the court, and not make it seasonal, but more of an ongoing program for us. And that seems like to me, a logical next step.
Well, I would say there probably was concern going from the players down there to the instructor. The instructor maybe there wasn't as many concerns or complaints because they knew it was temporary.
Well,
Yes,
but
that's
then
right.
that
I think
comes,
if they knew it was more permanent,
Yep.
there would be more
Yes.
concerns.
that's
And-
fine, but I think that what we are saying is that we have a population we want to serve that's
I-
doing all
I
the
don't
things
disagree
in
with that.
recreation that are so important. It's not just a sport, they're not just getting physical activity, we're creating community. People are meeting each other, we're creating all these wonderful things that we look for out of recreation. So I understand that the concerns, but I would like to see us move forward with an extended trial. You know, maybe with some tweaks to it, if it's a different court that's better than another court, have those discussions. But provide something with lights, because the other thing, when we're talking about Sewell Park, no lights. We're talking about other places that don't have lights. So at the end of the day, short of building a brand-new court with lights, which we know how expensive that is, because we're working on the sport courts right now, this is about the only way that we can give the whole spectrum of players a place to play.
However, in the summer, it stays light out so that they could be at Soul Park in the daylight much longer, certainly than in the winter. I think where's Tim? If I am reading everything correctly, it's the winter that is the problem. Is it because of the darkness?
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's the heat too in the summer, because
Well-
a lot of times when we play in the Hall, and we generally start at 3:30, it's 105 degrees.
Yeah, well, it's hot at Libby too. I played at that time
Yeah.
at Libby, right?
Right,
Pat?
but
I mean,
if
it is.
we
It's
were
very
playing
hot.
in the evening time,
Right.
that temperature would be a lot lower,
Mhm.
and we could enjoy the game more.
And,
Yep.
and I come at this from a little different perspective than you. That I think if you go back to a trial and you chalk the lines, all you're gonna do is end up with more discussion about it's too confusing and the lines are in the way, and that's where the complaints are gonna be. To me, in my head, which is different than most, this is a no-brainer. I just don't see it as a big deal to take one court, convert it over, call it good.
I think it's kind of we can use it as kind of a weaning period. We're weaning the tennis community off of what they've been accustomed to. They've been somewhat monopolizing
But
those
we can't
courts, right?
Right, you don't wanna
So,
pussyfoot around the tennis community.
No, I think it is a
Transition.
transitional period that we can use to make something more permanent. But I need to ask, before we move forward with contacting the county and looking into grants, is using Soul Park something that your group would be interested in? Because, I mean, isn't there a cost associated with going into no cost? There is a cost. There is a cost, right? So that doesn't really seem like a viable solution for you, correct? I mean, unless they work out some type of fee waiver?
What is the cost?
Closer to town.
Right. So that's not even really a consideration then, to do that.
Resurface the courts.
That's what I'm saying, though, even if we were to do the legwork and work with the county to, whether we do a partnership and cost sharing or we get a grant to cover, is that even a viable option for your group? Because it doesn't, I'm not sure if it would be cost prohibitive if the entrance fee would,
Yeah, that's called $2 entry fee during the week, and then I think $5
on the weekends. So it doesn't really sound like that. I just don't want to go in the wrong direction if that's not something you think would work. And the other question I had was what type of other materials are available? I know you said the masking tape or the painter's tape wasn't working, but is there a more semi-permanent spray that you could use that isn't in the $15,000 range?
No, a lot of these places that have temporary lines, the cities have painted a light blue line right on the tennis court.
Oh, and it has to be blue. That's the kind of the pickleball color, or
That's what I've been seeing, they're
Okay.
light blue lines.
Okay.
And they're right on top of the existing tennis court,
okay.
and they're being used for both.
And
Tennis and pickleball.
So,
okay.
a question.
What city was that in? Just so we can maybe get some.
Juan Maria Park,
Oh, in Ventura?
yeah,
Okay.
126, and it's Kimball and Loma Vista,
Mhm.
right on the corner of Kimball and Loma Vista.
Mhm.
Juan Maria Park, also Harry O'Lyon Park in Ventura, right beside the Anza Junior High School.
Mhm.
They're doing the same thing there.
So the white outline for the tennis and then a blue inner line for the, so when you say one tennis court, you're saying, I'm not a tennis player, so one court on this side, one on this side, that's one whole court. Is that correct?
Right, they would have, in other words, on one tennis court, they'd have a pickleball court on each side.
And but actually two. You're
Correct.
saying, okay,
Correct.
because but
But when you say it makes 4, it's not 4 different games going on, it's 2 games using each a half a court, or they use a quarter of a court?
So when I'm saying 4, on the size of a tennis court, say for instance, right down here at Libby,
Yeah.
they're 60 feet wide, and right now I think they're 117 feet long.
Okay,
So you need a little space on the side between each one.
okay,
And on the end, so that you're not up against the fence. So if you had a footprint of 60 feet wide by 120 feet long, you could put 4 pickleball courts on that, no problem.
4 independent games, or do you use 2?
Yeah.
Oh,
4 courts.
and the balls don't interfere with, when they're that close?
I played in tournaments on those.
Wow,
Yeah.
that seems really close,
You've
okay.
got 5 feet between you and the next court.
You
And that's okay.
remember they're using wiffle balls, so
I just-
yeah, the balls just don't
It seems really
go that
compact.
far or that hard.
And-
And I,
And then, I'm sorry, when you were playing on court 6, were you playing, when you said you set up the 2 courts, that was just on half of the court then, correct?
One on each side. of the
One on
tennis
each
court,
side, that's
centered.
preferable.
One on each side of the tennis court, centered.
Okay, and is that preferable, or do you prefer to do the 4? Like, if you had a choice, how would you prefer it
If
be?
I had a choice,
Mhm.
we're growing so quickly, 2 is not gonna suffice. We
Okay.
need 4.
Okay.
Okay,
And how
Ryan,
many play on each
Thank you.
team at a time?
he has,
I'd
Ryan's
like
been
to
waiting
ask a
to, yeah.
question.
Okay.
Excuse me?
And how many members can you serve at one time during the game?
Well, on each court, there's 4 players on each court, so
Okay.
we could have 16 players on
One court, okay,
One tennis court.
got it.
So I think what Commissioner Murphy is suggesting is a great idea and makes a ton of sense, which is to have kind of a court at Libby most of the year that's dedicated for pickleball, but that can be converted into something usable for the Ojai tennis tournament for those couple weeks of the year. But a question for you is, of course, those then couldn't be permanent. They're not going to be permanent courts. They'd be something more akin, I think, to what we have now, except maybe with painted lines, but maybe nets or temporary, something like that. But is that sufficient? Would that work? Or do you really need more permanent courts?
If we had 4 courts on one tennis court, right now, that would be sufficient.
Right, but if those courts were not permanent, they were temporary, but they're set up for 11 months out of the year. Would those temporary courts be sufficient, or is there something that I'm missing about kind of you need like a permanent net for the play of the game to be ideal, or
Well, if we had 4 courts marked on one tennis court, we'd need 4 temporary nets.
Yeah.
We have that now.
right?
So we would have to put the nets up and either take them down each time or leave them up.
Yeah, and is that the play of the game okay with those temporary nets?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
so
They use those temporary nets in a tournament type play.
okay, all right.
and I think, Ryan, if I may, my idea is not, that's what we're going to do, and thank you very much, goodbye, that's it for the next 20 years. It's, these folks need something like now.
Yeah.
And what this would allow them to do is have 4 viable pickleball courts 11 months out of the year. And during this time, we can be looking, as Councilman Haney suggested, for a more permanent location, because I can almost promise you, you're going to outgrow those 4 courts easily in a year, if not sooner than that. And my proposal, if you want to call it that, basically comes from the fact, it's, as you all know, that it kills me that it takes us 3 years to get anything done around here. So that would be a quick, simple, painless fix, get these folks something that they can use, and then let's devise a better plan moving forward.
Now, my only comment on this is just coming from, and I'm not a tennis person, and I've not been a pickleball person, but the permanent light blue lines seem like that could be a problem, because the Ojai is the Ojai, and there's very strict regulations as to those courts, even for the once a year. So if the best we could do is to chalk them regularly and still use temporary court, would that be a sufficient solution? It's not ideal, but it's one where we can balance the needs of an existing long-term, because that would work. I think that would be a good recommendation, is we chalk them, we dedicate them. I'd also like to look at times, because I think it would be a frustration for pickleball to have specific times that they want to come play and have tennis on that court. So I think if we do this, we should specify certain times are pickleball exclusive, meaning if someone's playing tennis, you can kick them off, because this is designated for this sport at this time. Because that would seem important if we're going to go to the effort of doing this, to make sure that it's available.
And that's, I think you misconstrued my point. My point is, there's no tennis on that court.
Okay, so you're saying that
It's
this court would no longer be a tennis court, meaning
Correct.
they could play there, but if a pickleball person comes up, they know
It's not, you
that.
can't do both.
No, because you'd have to take the
net's
nets down.
gone, it's four completely.
Right, but I thought the nets were temporary and coming and going.
No, I'm talking about the main tennis net.
Oh, to do the four courts, the
All
main
it
tennis
is-
net needs to come
All
down?
it is, 11 months a year, are four
Well-
pickleball courts.
Well,
We still need
actually,
it for
it's
le-
not.
No, okay.
We have junior team tennis leagues that use all four of those courts at, in the fall and in the spring for 8-week periods of time. They use all four of
And
those
even
courts.
his
It's not
regular
just, it's
classes
not just,
often
the
use all
it's
four
just,
classes.
What
it's
I'm
not
saying
just
is,
the
they
tennis
couldn't be
tournament.
moved to the upper courts.
That
Well,
was-
then
yeah.
you'd have, no, because actually sometimes we have so many youth in the junior team tennis program
They go back.
that we use lower and
And
upper
upper.
courts. We use
Yep.
both. We use
And they also
6
have
courts
tournaments, don't
at
they?
And
times.
tournaments.
And we do tournaments as well, like they have high-performance tennis clinics on weekends. There's a couple other smaller tournaments during the course of the year.
Yeah.
So to say we're just gonna,
Okay,
no
Those are
tennis players at all.
programmed,
That would never
Um,
work.
So
It's
can
going
I-
to be very difficult. The crowd you see here tonight, with all due respect, you would have an equally big, or if not bigger, crowd of tennis players. I'm just.
yeah,
I'm just
I think a follow-up question then, Tim, for you is, if that net in the middle stays up, can you still do 4 courts?
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't see why I think
They're
we're
not
splitting
centered.
hairs on
They're-
this.
right.
You could still do the 4 courts, they still have the space. I think that you could make it for the time, I still think time-specific would be good, because we don't want to create conflicts. We want to be clear what the intent is here. You know, I don't think we can say exclusively pickleball, but I would like to, you know, could we pick out some times that would be ideal to say pickleball and put that on the
Well, I think
schedule?
maybe it'd be the reverse. It would be when we know we're gonna have the clinics that are programmed events,
Those are
correct?
Yeah, a lot of
non-pickleball
these-
Those are the
Okay.
non-pickleball times. I
Sure,
mean,
a
it would
lot
seem
of
like that would
these-
give them
That's
the
it.
flexibility that they're
So
wanting.
it's pickleball except for, and then it would be posted.
Yeah, because we know when those those are programmable.
Programming, okay.
And is there a cost associated with your club that do your members, is it a membership, and what's the?
There's no cost.
It's
No-
wonderful.
No cost.
My wife and I have taken on the responsibility of paying everything. I have a donation jar,
Okay.
and that is not required. If you want to put $1 in it, you can. If you don't want to put anything in there, that's fine.
But when we talk about making specific times, I'll be a stick in the mud here, but we're saying we're gonna make specific times and we're gonna reserve the courts. City policy is, if you wanna reserve the courts,
Well,
you have to pay for the use
If
of
it's
those
the city
courts.
doing it, I don't see it as reserving. I see it as the city making a
Earmarking.
policy decision.
Right.
that
Okay.
This is an
Right.
available
And-
resource to our community during
Sure.
these times for this. It's
And-
not a
and-
reservation.
Sure, so if your body, at
That's
this
what we're talking
point,
about.
right, and at this point, I don't make unilateral decisions on these kind of policy decisions, but for this commission, you're, of course, you're welcome, and at your direction to make these recommendations, and then I go forward to the city manager's office and make these recommendations, so I can't, obviously,
I think
you
what
know that I
she's
can't
saying,
make
though,
any
Saf, is
commitments
we
tonight.
would like them to be available to the pickleball groups as long as it doesn't interfere with your programmed activities. I think that's maybe a better way to word it.
Mm-hmm.
So your programs are our priority. They're revenue generating for the rec department, and we know when they're gonna be. And so that would be something that we would have to collaborate on to let them know when those activities are going on. And then I don't know, is there other groups besides yours that come out and play pickleball? Like do you leave your nets up at Matilaha where you have other groups, or is it all collaboration?
No, right now we take them down so it's not interfering with the kids at the school.
Oh, at school.
Right.
Okay, I
Which
see.
brings up a really good point. If we were to do this, why couldn't we, in essence, no offense to Tim, but absorb the pickleball program into the rec department, offer instruction, offer kids classes, offer whatever. And not that that would raise a cost for the folks, but it just now becomes a city program with just as much viability as the tennis program and should have just as much right to the courts as the tennis program.
You could go that way. You can
That
take
gives us
that
a little bit more
option.
control over the use of the courts as far as times and.
It also limits the available hours to anyone just wanting to drop in and play, for those who are already playing, if they're not looking to get into a program. It's
Right,
just a, you know,
Both
it's
ways.
the balancing it
I
all.
wouldn't see it any different than what the tennis facility is now, which is the courts are available to anybody, anytime, unless there's scheduled lessons or a
It would actually
program.
give them more, there would be a cost associated with that, but it sounds like that they don't need an instructor, right?
No.
Do you have to provide staffing if it's a programmed event, or can it be self-guided? Meaning if
I'm not
pickleball was an activity that you had on your,
Like,
Well,
yeah,
we have
I'll give you
drop-ins.
for example, yeah, we have drop-in programs. People, drop-in basketball, soccer, ultimate frisbee, which you're well aware of. And people pay a $3 drop-in fee. They get use of that city space.
I think that should be on our radar to look at programming and to investigate that. But as far, go ahead, Ryan, if you have a comment.
Yeah, so it's not on the agenda to make a recommendation today, but it sounds like it's going to come up maybe next month or sometime soon. And so my request to Sophocles would be to come back with the details about when all of the tennis courts are used aside from the Ojai tournament.
Okay.
Because that I think would be helpful to know. I mean, I'm thinking maybe it's a dedicated pickleball except for, and we spell out,
Yeah.
certain
Yeah,
times.
we could calendar the whole year out pretty
Yeah,
easily.
right.
With
So I think future agenda item is where
use.
we're at,
Yeah, and request
to make
for
a
more
recommendation
information.
next time to council.
okay.
and I have a question for Tim before he goes. The Juana Maria Park that's dual striped, do they use, to your knowledge, do they use those for any competitive tennis type competitions, or are they just recreational use down there?
To
Do you
my
know?
knowledge, I don't know
Okay.
the answer to that question. It's within a community,
Mhm.
that park is, so I assume the developer had to put that park in. to
Okay.
Develop that property, but it's public. Anybody can come there any time of the day and either use the tennis courts or the pickleball courts that have been painted
On top.
of the tennis courts.
And just to use it as a comparison, and I know you played basketball, you played a lot of basketball, I have. Basketball courts always have one set of line for basketball and one set of lines for volleyball. It's not a problem.
Yeah, very good point.
Once you get used to it, it's not a concern. So I don't see where this whole big,
Well, I think it's the Ojai.
Hubbub.
It's the Ojai.
Right.
And that
You
is
know
a
what?
very, with this very strict set of rules that
And
govern
also
it.
They
And
use
I-
that.
They
little
use
court.
every court that's out there.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it is a little bit different, like basketball, you're not looking at the line like this, like you
No.
are in tennis and pickle,
Tennis,
I
the
imagine in
line.
pickleball you are.
Absolutely.
But I think we've had a great discussion tonight. I really appreciate that everyone's come out. Tim, we really
Excuse me,
appreciate what
there's
you've done.
There's somebody that would like to speak.
Okay, hold on just one second. Go ahead.
And if you do, sorry, would you mind?
Come on up.
Come on up. Have to be aware of that.
Sorry.
No, come on up.
Just know that last year when they came through Matilda, the tennis tournament resurfaced the court, and I think they do that each year for the tournaments. So does that affect the line?
I don't know that they resurface all of them, but this is a question for them.
Because they did
Yeah, I
last year,
don't-
Matilda, and I think they're gonna do it again this year.
Just the cracks they told me.
They fix it up.
Just the cracks.
They fix it up for
That made me
the,
think that maybe that was striping opportunities. That's all.
yes,
Thank
very
you.
good comment.
Yeah, thank you.
so, but I think we've had a great discussion. I can speak for, it sounds like our whole commission, in that we support what you're doing and would like to move it forward. How we move that forward, there's still a little more to discussion, and I think by next month, we'll be ready to make a recommendation to council. So it'll be on the agenda again. We'll continue the discussion and decide how to move it forward to council. But it's wonderful what you're doing, and I really appreciate it. It's a community service.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks for coming out, you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. Pickleball. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Thanks for coming out.
We're gonna have a sale on masking tape.
There you go, Jim. All right.
It's rather, I think, like big pieces.
All right. Okay, so
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
next we have CIP, which we're coming back around to from last month. Allison has updated our Parks and Recreation Commission recommended project list.
Yeah, do you want me to run you through that real fast?
That'd be great. And this is specific to our commission's take on the CIP. And then what you have on the 11 by 17 is the city's proposed capital improvement plan. And Allison's going to run through it, but she's been nice enough to highlight it, so you'll be able to see the differences.
Yeah, so you have a double-sided document. The yellow side is what I've updated that's current. On the back side of that is the document as it was, I think, last time this commission saw it. So if you want to reference anything there, because I did take off 2 fiscal years, and I moved the completed projects down to the bottom. You can see a list of items that were completed those 2 fiscal years. But it's pretty self-explanatory. For those that haven't seen this document before, you'll notice that for each fiscal year, there's 2 columns. There's one that PRC's priorities or recommendations, and then there's the actual city CIP column. So that's all current with our current CIP, and then the yellow highlights are where your recommendations in the past, the document that's on the flip side, don't line up with what's on the current CIP. So you can see, for example, at one point there was an all parks master plan line item that you guys had made a recommendation for a particular year. It's currently not assigned on the current CIP. And then ball field maintenance, you guys had recommended it for it to happen last fiscal year, and I'm actually not quite sure how long ago that was recommended, but it's currently on the CIP for fiscal year 22-23. And then the last one is the gym floor you had recommended for this current fiscal year, and it's currently also on fiscal year 22-23. And then the information down at the bottom was just carried straight over from that old document with kind of some, I think that's all my updates.
Okay, thank you. So I think the thing that jumps out at me very first of all is the sport courts and wanting to update that as per the recommendation we've already made, excuse me, to council for funding on that. So that's the first update that should go on our CIP plan.
Sure. It's the most obvious, so yeah, let's get to that.
Yes. And
So we're looking middle page for everyone's reference on the actual 5-year CIP. That's what you're talking about, not on the rec one now.
well, we don't, I think
I
we
mean,
should,
we could change it on there if
we
you'd
should
like.
update it on ours.
Yeah, we can say multi-sport.
Because-
We could even change the name of it, obviously. It just says outdoor basketball.
It says outdoor basketball
Oh,
courts,
okay,
which
that's
is
what I
what
was-
they were
okay.
called, but
Okay.
that is the
Multi-sport.
multi-sport.
Yeah, we'll call it multi-sport there, and
And we need to update the total project cost so that it
Right.
reflects the 2 courts as per our recommendation.
which,
So 150,000 to,
well, right, but it's conservatively, it's 260.
Yeah,
I
I-
would say conservatively.
For 2?
260 for 2.
yeah.
That was the that was
Without
the quote
lights.
we got.
Then we should be putting that number in there
Yeah, we should put that number
to
there.
reflect that.
Yes.
in 1920, right?
Yeah.
And also any changes we make today, I'm happy to edit this and just send this out to you guys next week also.
That'd be great, because I think when we are this is what we should be sending forward to council.
Right.
Because the other thing that I thought, because the community pool is on here as well, which, we just want to keep putting it out there.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be on the 5-year CIP plan, but we want to make sure that that's on our list of priorities, even if we don't know what the timing is. And then we can go line by line, or is there anything that's not on here that we've discussed or that someone would like to see represented on our CIP?
Well, in lieu of the conversation tonight, maybe pickleball.
That's, yeah, no, wow.
I mean,
So
If you
we might like to
wanna-
get a line item on there for pickleball.
Yeah, I would think, I think that should be, I think that's gonna be a big issue, not an issue, but a big thing in the next 4 to 5 years, is that sport's gonna explode.
That-
And we should have courts for that.
Ryan, what were you going to
Oh,
say?
it seems like before we can put it on there, we want to know kind of what is it or where,
Is it the $12,000 to convert something? Is it a full court? But maybe we should represent it on there with, just as an upcoming, so that we're letting them know that this is on the radar. Because we have some other things on here that we have unknowns on as far as the amount of money. I think it might be worthwhile just to reflect, I know that's not the purpose of a typical CIP, to put things on without enough information.
Well, it gives the city.
But it's a heads up on that it's coming.
Well, it's
I
a,
guess
it's
it's
a,
like
it's
the
a
bike
project
pot.
list. It's a
Yeah.
recommended project list, so much like the community pool, a pickleball facility, for lack of a better name, and much like Councilman Haney said,
Pickleball
then
court, I
then
think is
it's
what you're-
kind of a multi-task force to pinball or pinhole locations. Cost, we have no idea.
Yeah, we're not close. We just want to put it on there and know that it's
that's
on
my
the
thought.
horizon.
Just so we keep reminding ourselves, hey, this is something we need to look at.
All right.
Okay.
We can-
So, great, we'll put
So what's
pickleball on
your,
there. We've
okay,
got,
and
we're
do you
adding,
have
the-
do you have a
Pickleball
dollar amount? You just want to say
Unknown.
pickleball? Just
Unknown.
unknown.
Same like with the community pool
With the pool.
and the.
Okay.
Well, what, didn't
This
he-
is on, this
Water
is
park
on
element?
this is on our list, sorry. You
Right,
got
and
it.
I was gonna say, based on what he told
Great,
us about
yeah.
the facility in Ventura, didn't he throw out a number of 500 and?
12,000.
No, $500,000.
Oh, for a complete, yeah.
For
The
6
12,000
courts.
number you
Oh.
can throw away, that's not gonna be a useful number for anything. Because that was to
Well,
resurface one.
since we don't have a useful number, we will put it on there and then
Okay.
we'll circle back when we have more information. Randy's raising his hand, so Randy Haney, come on up.
Are you guys on the CIP discussion?
Yeah, do you have ours as well as the city?
Is this the one?
That's
the one.
that's the recreation one, and then there's, Allison will help you, and then there's this actual city one. That's the city CIP. That's the approved one. Yeah.
If we don't know a number, we should just put a little picture of Dr. Evil doing this.
Yeah. I like that idea.
On a side note, while they're getting that paperwork, can a futsal court be?
Real quick on this, I'll let you go.
Graveyard, I don't know.
Sage, I'm gonna lead on pushing this forward. I'm gonna drive it, because I think I can make requests faster than you guys can get answers.
Now, Randy, I have to share with you that we made a recommendation 3 months ago.
3 months ago.
That we, to council, that has not made it to council yet. And I don't know if you're aware of that. So we can make recommendations, but getting things agendized has not so far been easy for us.
And it's interesting because what happens is you as a commission make your recommendation to Sophocles, and then he is the liaison who takes it to Steve. And if you don't, if Sophocles doesn't come back and tell you what's happened with it, then I think you have a right to have the level of control. And there's always an opportunity for the chair to come speak to council.
Okay,
But more importantly, there's also, it's just as easy for the chair to call a council person too.
okay.
But I've just really seen this discussion go on for years now.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's incredibly important what I've heard, and that is, there's an opportunity, that we're the granddaddy of all the tennis tournaments in the United States, and there's an opportunity to become the granddaddy of the pickleball world, because it's going to get big. It's already huge in all of your retirement communities. My sister's just had a chance to get into Sun City in Sacramento. And, they have 12 or 16 dedicated courts that are in full use like every day. It's incredible how big it is. So, it's an opportunity here. And I think if we step on some toes, but do it lightly and politely, and we dedicate something for 11 months and actually dedicate it, change it, dedicate it, knowing that we're gonna send it back, it'd be a better opportunity to make the study than it is trying to make a study on someone that's chalked on lines on a tennis court.
Completely agree.
I just don't know how anyone plays. It seems to me when you're done playing, all those lines are all knocked around. How do you chalk them is the chalker there, and when they're done, they re-chalk them?
Yeah.
Does seem labor intensive.
Have they considered spray chalk? I mean, it's not like it would float away in the wind. Probably stay there a little, just,
It's like spray paint, but
yeah,
temporary.
tape it off and then spray it with a can.
I just think if you take the risk, you take a chance. I know it's hard. I know it.
Not really.
But take the risk, take the chance, and meet with the tennis people, and let them know what you're trying to achieve. And then that gives us more opportunity to plan, price, and dedicate plan. Or do something conjunctive with the school property and some of their courts. There's just a lot of things that we could do. And I've just seen this ball kicked down the road, I don't know how many times.
Well, and I think it's on the agenda it'll be on the agenda for next month. It'll give us the time to ask some questions that we need answered to have an educated discussion, because I think we have questions that, I think at the end of the meeting, we'll have a list of questions that we're gonna want answers to.
Next month.
But it'll be on the agenda and we'll move forward.
And like I said, I'll do as much as I can in the interim
Okay.
to move this up.
Great.
Because they deserve something.
It's a great program.
And I think we talked about it before, you guys, about running it through the Parks Department. I think that's also a great idea too.
We,
but-
of course, our door is always open to any person, any group that wants to collaborate with the Recreation Department. I've had plenty of meetings with Mr. Kraut.
You've put it
and
up on
he's-
your, it's
he's-
been up on the,
He's gonna be in our activity guide. He's putting an ad in our guide.
Yeah.
We're listing him under the community groups in our guide. And when he's reached out, we've given him audience to express what his needs are. And when we have allowed that group to be on the court. So I would take a little bit of exception that we have done nothing for them.
oh, I
I
don't think
know,
that was the point that was being
I
made.
thought that's
I don't
what
think
I
that
was-
was the point that was
I
being
got
made at
the
all.
impression of it.
Well, I
Maybe
think
I'm-
in your
yeah.
defense, I mean, we're not making, there is no revenue being made off of that program, right? It's just
No.
using,
And
so
nor
something to think
were we
about of
asking,
how
nor
we
did we
could.
ask.
Nor-
I
Right.
think this is a natural process. I think there's nothing wrong with how this has evolved. There was an interested citizen who got people together, and now we're at a point where we're ready to push forward to a different level of service for that group. And we will discuss that
Absolutely.
next
And-
month with hopefully more details on some of the court questions and
Well, I think
the
that
tennis
next-
court
next-
questions and all of that for next month.
Next month.
Yes.
Yep.
I guarantee you that you're going to have tennis people here, because it would be only fair, and they will
Well-
present.
It's open to anyone. We'd like to have all comers.
Well, I
Feel
know,
free to
I'm
come and
just
speak
saying that
publicly.
That will be.
Great.
that will be the case.
And-
Of course, we're gonna invite all the interested parties.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Just remember that, I think to keep in mind is that we serve everybody, not
course.
this group
Right.
over that
We
group
do.
or that group
We
over this
do.
group. And I think there's a way, I know there is to keep everybody happy. They may not like it, but everybody's gonna have to compromise a little bit.
Well, and I think that we need to answer the questions. We need answers to some of these questions about needs that we don't have right now, that we can, over the next month, get that information, and that we'll have an educated discussion next month.
And there have been compromises by both sides, even in
Yes.
this
But
trial
think-
period.
But I guess what I'm saying at this point is, I think we're done with the discussion tonight, because I
Sure.
don't think we're gonna make any progress with it, because we don't have any new information, and we're gonna agendize it, so we're good. So I think we should move back to CIP.
Excellent, I agree.
Nice segue, well segued, young lady.
I'll take that.
Okay, so multi-sport court we put on there, and we put a higher budget number for that, as we recommended before. Pickleball is on there, unknown timeline, knowing that we're going to want to do something, but we don't know what yet, because we're not at a point where we can make any educated assumptions. Are there any other projects that individuals see on here that they would like to bump up? Discuss what we've budgeted? Is there anything missing that are projects that you see that
Yes.
we've discussed that you'd like to have on there?
There is,
Go
it's
ahead.
the common community pool.
It's on, the pool is on
No,
there.
no, we're going to, Sophocles, myself, and Eric, we're going to visit Carpinteria and the officials that are there.
Okay.
And find out how they were able to put their pool in place.
Great.
Which is absolutely excellent. So we need, hopefully by next month, our next meeting, we'll have some costs that, we can kind of relate to.
Okay, so it's on there already, so we've earmarked a spot for it, we just haven't had, we aren't at a place to put information on yet, but when that becomes available, we can add that on.
If
So,
you see us coming back next meeting with frowns on our face, then you'll know we're.
I mean,
Where is it?
oh,
honestly,
on here,
a
it's,
community pool, I know we've heard this over and over and over again, but it's still, other communities do it. It's so expensive, the maintenance, whatever. Our kids need it. Our kids need a pool in this town.
everyone would love one. So, good, we've got it on here, I think
No,
it's,
It's really true, we do.
I
We
have-
definitely need a pool.
did you have a different item, Eric?
I did have something that I wanted to see if it needed to be on there or not. Earlier this year, or maybe late last year, we talked about the leak at the fountain at the Libby Park. whether or not the leak detection worked and if that was gonna fall, the repair for that was gonna fall under Public Works or if it would be under our
Is this
budget
the-
issues.
Which fountain?
The
You're
the
talking
fountain
about
at
the-
Libby Park.
Fountain.
Yeah,
Okay,
there was
that, I
an
just wanted to make sure,
actual-
the
there was an
actual
underground
fountain,
leak
okay.
somewhere that we had people
Community
out there doing a third party
As it is.
doing leak detection. And I
I'm-
never heard anything about.
Yeah, I'm not sure,
So that's a Public Works question?
yeah.
Oh, well, yeah,
He just wants to
that
know
was
if it
my
needs-
question,
if the
whether or not
repairs
it
need
would
to be
fall under
budgeted.
Public Works for repair or whether it would be.
It likely would, that wouldn't fall in under our
It's-
CIP.
It's not on Greg's current plan. So the question, I think, is we would want to, could you send that to
I'll
Greg and ask
Greg where
about,
that
the
is
fountain.
and if it, yeah.
because it isn't on the city one, you're right. and
Well,
it-
yeah, I
it's-
asked because it's the 2015 and 16 and 16 and 17, there's a portion that says Libby Park Fountain Area Fix.
They did,
I
There
don't know
was
if that
some
was-
construction
they did
done a
some of
couple years
that,
ago.
which was, yeah.
So similarly, if there's a leak now, would that be something that needs to be on?
So that
I-
goes under questions for
Yeah,
Greg.
would it come out of our budget? I don't know.
That could
answer.
potentially be
Yeah.
a big money fix.
Yeah, it could be.
Fountain leak, okay.
I don't see the
I
city
got
letting
you.
that go.
I got that,
I'm sure they would absorb the
Commissioner
cost.
Jacobson, I'll look into it.
They want answers.
I think on our list,
You can't handle the.
I'd recommend we remove the bike park line item.
Yeah, at this point,
Yeah,
Eliminating that, taking that off.
yeah.
that's a very good idea.
Allison, you're going to send us a revised? Great. Okay, thank you.
Other than that, everything looks about right.
Okay.
Well, do we want to add the lights for, I know we have Sarasota Field #1 light pole, but do we want to project out some money for the multi-sport?
I think it's a great idea to get it on our CIP.
Yeah, to
Not
have
knowing
it out.
exactly when it all hits, but lights for multi-sport courts.
Just as its own little
Mhm.
entity.
Yeah, well, and because our recommendation, until we hear back on that initial recommendation, which just had putting the conduit in for future, it'd be nice to have, if that gets rejected, it would be nice to have, that line item. in there.
Wouldn't it be more cost-effective if we were gonna do Sarzoli Field lights to do all the lights at once?
They're actually very different lighting systems.
Oh, I understand that.
Because they don't, from my understanding, what we've been told in our previous meetings is that the way that field is, LEDs won't work yet, the way that, to light the field and the space that it's lighting. Whereas the sport courts would be very well lit by the LEDs.
It's small.
I would still suggest that doing it, even though they're two different systems, doing them all at once would be much more cost-effective than doing two completely separate projects with two completely separate bids and to bid the whole thing.
The poles they already have the costs on and are,
It's
Greg
just
knows.
replacing the poles,
Yeah.
it's not replacing the lights if,
The lights
it's
are
just the
okay.
pole itself.
right,
Okay.
yeah, it's,
Because we asked that question before, and
It's
they
just
did
the
look
poles.
into it, but switching those lights to LEDs, I guess, it was explained is it's not feasible because of the way the coverage needs to happen and how you can't put poles in the middle of the field
Okay.
to get the light in there. That was
yeah, that would be
the
accurate.
presentation we had at least a year or two ago.
Yeah,
One item that I was just going to bring to your guys' attention, we do have, and this has been on here since we did the Libby Playground, we have Libby Park water element on here. I just want to put it to you guys, is that still something you want on your priority list, or do you want to swap it for or add Sarasota Park
I think
water
just
element?
strike Libby and put water element.
Fair.
Because ultimately, I don't know how wedded we are to one location so much as wanting a water element.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Allison.
Curious,
And-
is there a reason why the Libby Bowl stuff isn't on here?
Which Libby Bowl stuff?
Well, the Libby Bowl
Yeah.
stuff for the past
The
2
sh-
years.
The,
The lawn.
Oh, the
Renovation
raise
of
the
the
lawn.
area, right?
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
no, we should put it on there.
Lawn improvements, would we call it?
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I don't remember what the price tag was on that, or the rough estimate,
$225,000.
225.
Yeah, it's pretty
was
high.
it? Was it? Yeah.
You can ask the councilman, or
Yeah,
all
he
about it.
he spearheaded somewhat.
As we add some
Where
of
are we
these
at with
things, then it becomes a question of timing. So would that go under unassigned?
The lawn improvements?
Yeah. Or would you try and
Well,
put it in a year?
Is that something that we were in favor of, or this
Well,
body was in favor of?
That is why it
actually?
didn't make it
Correct.
to the list
Yeah.
before as a priority.
We didn't, it was 50-50
Yeah,
and
it was.
we did the community thing and everybody's like, eh.
It was mixed review. It was a
Correct.
50.
We didn't make
It
a
was just like
recommendation
that.
on that.
You didn't, and so, but you want to put it on the, just have it there as a placeholder? Is that what
I
you're saying?
didn't recall that
Or
we
you-
hadn't, it sounds like we voted, unless we want to revisit it for a new discussion on an agendized topic, we probably shouldn't add it to the CIP if we already had a discussion and didn't yield a recommendation.
It did yield a
Well,
recommendation.
Oh, it
isn't-
did.
I can't
isn't-
recall,
Can you,
so.
can you tell us what that, can you remind us of what that was?
If I recall, it was that council should consider it.
Yeah.
That we saw value in it, but it was unclear how valuable that was relative to the cost and other priorities
And
the
there are a
council
few
might have.
specific concerns called out that I don't remember.
Yeah, and we had
Yes.
some
So
specific
did that go
concerns.
to the council, I guess, is a question for Soft for next month?
Well, did it? It was brought before them at the joint meeting, but it didn't go as a, there wasn't, the recommendation was not definitive.
Yeah, so I mean, I think like unless council's going to, we've made our recommendation. I don't know that we need to put it on here if it wasn't.
Well, again, I wonder,
Some knuckles.
is it really a recommendation to go, we don't know if it's really a good idea, so here you go?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yes.
not really a recommendation.
That is.
Oh, yeah, it
That's
It
our
is.
recommendation.
I think
It
it is.
was what we all agreed upon, and we had specific
only
concerns that were
I remember, yeah.
relayed.
Yeah,
I don't
that does
remember the
make sense.
exact concerns. but-
Okay.
Yeah.
So just circling back so
Yeah.
that we complete this, the lights for the multi-sport courts, I would put under the unassigned column.
Yes.
Yeah? Is everyone in agreement on that?
Yeah, unknown, well, I think the cost, we do probably know the
We
cost.
could probably get a cost approximately, but we
In the
put it
unassigned.
unassigned in the sense of a time and a date.
Yeah, I think the cost is listed on the last recommendation.
Bigfoot.
Okay,
I think that looks good.
Why not put a date for the lights?
well, it would be,
You mean
we
a
could?
year, so assign a year? I think it has to be really based on where our recommendation, I mean, is with,
That recommendation, back to the actual multi-sport courts, will go before city council when they receive the budget, when they do the budget review. It'll have that recommendation on there in the dollar amounts we're requesting, or you're making a request for.
So, and as we've heard,
Yes.
there's some weight given to when we make a recommendation or put a number in a box, that then the council considers it. But if we don't assign it to a year, then they don't have anything to consider.
should we put then in our proposal for this year, carrying the money over that was already approved and then adding, putting in the 260,000? Is that what you're,
to add up to 260,000?
is that what you're saying, Ray?
I'm just saying.
You're talking about the lighting.
If it's about the lighting specifically, we should assign it to a year. Because we know where the
Okay.
lights are gonna go, we have some sense of cost, or we could get one.
To be clear, that is it a safety issue yet, or it's going to become a safety issue?
It's
No, it's
more
more
of
of a
an
use.
expanded, it's the capacity we add to it by having lights,
Got it.
of the usable
Especially in
hours.
the winter.
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe we can look at using the futsal court as a pickleball maybe the futsal people aren't as particular about multiple striping as the tennis people. I don't know what the
It-
surface is and if they're compatible, but
It's true, basketball, futsal, and pickleball
We call it
all
a
be
multi-sport court.
one. Yeah. Oh, I think
I will say
there's a better chance
a
of
reason
that
for
happening.
I would be worried about the amount of people and use wanting to be on
The
two
conflict.
courts with three sports. I imagine the basketball court's getting used a lot, and just to put that thought in there.
Well, the time that would be
all
good
the
for
more reason to have it as a
we're talking about the courts
programmed
at Sarzonia.
Yeah.
The
activity.
pickleball, I mean, they're, in my
drop
head, nobody's gonna be using those courts from 8 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon. Who's going to be doing it if kids are in school, soccer players are in school? It would be perfect for pickleball in the morning.
That
And
this
it seems-
becomes
Sure.
a programming discussion of
Right.
if you get,
Yeah.
right, and I
But
think
it-
that makes perfectly
But
good
it's
sense. to-
doable.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that way.
Something
And
to
then
certainly,
it would just
Yeah.
be a couple of option courts along with the dedicated court,
Well, so
if
this,
we get to that point.
then this actually,
Right.
Ryan, makes perfect sense with what you're saying, which is add the lights at a sooner date, especially if we think we're looking at doing something like that and it can take some pressure off of.
well, and maybe the council could weigh in on that thought too when it comes across as a recommendation.
So-
Because instead of spending $500,000 on new pickle courts, we could get we certainly wouldn't be able to do it with one multi-court. But as we recommended, the 2 courts, adding the lights would now serve the futsal community that's been probably going. with
Waiting
their
for a very,
request
very long
long
time.
time, and the pickleball courts. And having the lights would, I mean, they're playing till 10 o'clock at night. I
Yeah.
think that's great. But that's something that would, for that cost, $250,000, I think it is,
260
right?
plus whatever
260
lights are.
Plus the lights, so maybe 300,000. It seems a
probably
lot
more
less
than that, but-
expensive than building,
The
I'm just saying.
skate park lights were in the range of about 70.
That's what I-
want
yeah.
to say.
So 300.
75,000.
So to be fair,
20.
But
to be fair, that is a much simpler lighting job on 2 courts than the skate park.
yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Because
Well,
of
we can
the-
put it
Not
in
my-
a year
it's
and.
not my
Well,
area of
no,
expertise,
because the courts are flat. And part of the skate park issues where they were having to light all of the different levels. But
Yeah.
I think
I-
we know the cost though on this, on the multi-sport court, right? Are you,
260 is what the preliminary costs were that
With
we
the-
got from Crabtree and Associates.
right,
uh,
which included the
their-
conduits for the lighting, just not the actual lighting system, correct? Is that what you're?
I'm not sure if it included the conduit.
Which
I'm not
shouldn't be a
100%.
I
huge-
think
I'm
we
not
asked
sure.
for that, if I recall. I don't know whether it was, but we asked
Seems
for
like
that.
it.
It was one of the things we discussed.
I can go back and,
Yeah.
ask
And
again
plug
and
it in.
put the numbers in for
how-
you.
So
Okay.
so what we're
But what
proposing
year?
now
Right.
is to keep the 150 in 1819.
Yes.
And then in 1920,
Mm-hmm.
add $110,000 for a complete project budget to finish it then, correct?
Plus lighting separate.
Plus lighting separate, and we could put lighting in 1920 as a goal. I mean, because ultimately, we would love to do them at the same time. Doesn't mean it stays there, but what we're communicating is our priorities.
Yes.
And we don't have a number for that, so if you could,
I'll put 75 just as a placeholder, but I'll get the best estimate from either, the Public Works director and get his input on it.
okay, we could work
He'll
on
reach
it.
out to the
Okay.
And then,
Crabtree who did the initial
Okay,
project.
so,
I know you're saying on here on I had written down pickleball courts in the unassigned category, but I think in keeping with that spirit, then shouldn't we, even though we don't have a cost, perhaps we put in, $25,000 and we put it in our recommendation so that the council has that indication that there's a cost associated with some citizens, requests.
I'm not real comfortable with just putting a number for the sake of the number. I think, for me, this is discussion, we're going back to pickleball again, which we should pick up next time, but I don't think one project precludes the other. I think even if we got them on the multi-sport courts at Sarzodi, it wouldn't mean you didn't still need
Another
Libby.
court.
I mean, these are not one to get rid of the other. This is, how do we serve them? So I think we still from my perspective, we don't have a number we want to associate with pickleball specifically. But hopefully, maybe we can put down here under the assumptions that multi-sport courts could be used
For multiple.
part-time for pickleball.
Doesn't
As an assumption.
multi-sport court kind of
I-
just answer that question?
Well, it does for you and I, but you want to make sure that you're communicating all the information.
Well, we've always been taught that it was basketball and
Right.
futsal. I mean, those have been
So,
the two
so I'm
kind
just
of
saying,
that we
down
talked
here,
about.
like, we have some assumptions on the above. Let's just add an assumption that multi-sport court could include pickleball. So that it's clear that that's one of the intents of the multi-sport courts. Would that
I think that's reasonable.
suffice?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we're adding 150 in 1920, or 110, excuse me. And then also in 1920, we're going to add lighting for the multi-sport courts. with a number to be determined that you'll give us for next month
Mhm.
based on some research.
Mhm.
And that takes care of that. Pickleball, we're gonna leave on, and we're gonna put,
Unassigned.
unassigned unknown with a note that clarifies that we are considering multi-sport courts possibly to accommodate pickleball. Does that all make
Okay,
sense?
Yeah, sure. Do you want to, somehow we'll try to like write it out there in there or
Yep.
add those 3 sports. And if some volleyball group comes to us, we'll just send them on their way.
We'll talk about
Just
it.
kidding.
We've got plenty of grass for them.
Yeah,
Yeah, they already
Okay.
play on the grass. They're fun.
well, I think that was a
Um,
good,
yeah.
I
And
think
you were gonna remove the bike park and the word Libby
Libby for
from water park
element.
element.
Yes.
And then, sorry to clarify, we do not want to add Libby Lawn to this list at all? Okay, just
I
making sure.
don't think so. All right, anything else? How's everybody feeling? Or thinking? What are you thinking?
Yeah,
Okay.
staff probably have a couple maybe that we'll bring to the next that we'd like to go on the list, like overhaul of our heating and air conditioning systems over at the park, and that's
Okay.
gonna be more on the capital improvement side, but I can bring that to the next meeting with some estimates, and we'll see where we wanna put that and what year.
And if at some point it is possible to have Greg come to answer questions about some of these budgets and some of the ideas and give us some feedback on it, because this is going to him next, right?
Yeah.
This, what we do here will go to him, so it would be lovely at one of these to have him here so we can have a discussion with him
Yeah.
versus just sending off a.
Yeah, well,
document.
it will be him and the city manager as well,
Okay.
probably between myself, the city manager, and the public works.
Is the next step, and then
Yeah.
on to the, okay. So if we could do that, that'd be great, and then get some updates on projects.
Yes, I
Okay.
will invite him to the next meeting, It will be potentially my last.
I know, so please.
Is that when we get the pizza?
It will
Yeah.
be. It is definitely when you get the pizza.
All right.
I have plans for that.
So I think we're done with 8A for this month, capital improvement plan. So on to item 9, recreation staff report updates, and we're gonna start with classes, programs, and events.
Yeah, let's do that. Where's I keep wanting to give you too a overall fiscal year update, but I'll do it at the next one.
Perfect.
I'm sure you.
You can be your,
I'm sure you
at your
can wait.
last meeting?
Yeah, I can tell you where we stand compared to, last year's fiscal year to this,
Okay.
our current year. But let's talk about what's going on. Science camp, so as you know, the schools are on, the public schools are on break, so we're offering a science camp. Not big numbers in it, we've got nine participants, and it's a nice little group. Next week, we're actually gonna offer a cooking camp, because there are the public school students who are gonna be off next week. We're offering a cooking camp.
Oh, that's
So-
great.
Yep.
Be fun.
Similar times,
idea.
right, Allison? 9 to
9 to
noon,
noon, yep.
Monday through
That's
Friday,
at the rec
next week.
center, or-
It'll be at our, we hold it at the it's at Sarasota Park in the snack bar. That's
Very
where we-
cool.
Ages for that?
Ages.
I believe it's 6 to 11.
Oh.
You were hoping
It
to show
might
up?
be 5, but
And how
I'm
are,
not
how are
gonna commit
signups
to
going
that.
for that? Because that's new.
Not so great because it wasn't in the guide. So
Oh, okay.
we've promoted it by Facebook and
Well,
email, but
First
And the
try.
instructor's putting some flyers around town, so.
yeah, we're
see.
keeping our fingers
Really
crossed.
great.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and the cooking camps during the summer are
They're-
very
And
popular.
you do
fill
those
up.
in
They
the
fill up.
same facility?
Same
Same
facility. We run our cooking camps in that
Snack bar.
snack bar in the backstop building. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As always, I like to promote our movie nights. So Friday, April 26th, the Dr. Seuss movie, The Lorax, will
Oh,
be playing.
right.
Yep. So as always, just throw the information out. Starts at 6 p.m. Movie starts at 7. It's pizza, popcorn, drink, and it goes 6 to 9 p.m. All are welcome between the ages of 5 and 13.
You gotta be getting close, right?
So, under 5, not welcome.
Under 5 are not welcome.
Correct.
They're welcome to come and
Watch their
see what they
siblings,
can
wave their
come,
siblings goodbye.
what's in their future.
We get 'em if they like you.
Do you check birth certificates at the door?
We do. We check IDs.
We ask them to recite their ABCs.
So that's all I have for classes, program, and events. Well, we have other events, as you see further down the list, but do you want to mention aquatics this time,
do.
Allison?
We were debating what to bring you for aquatics. So as you know, some of you know, Nordoff is doing construction on their pool this year. The other facility that we've utilized is Villanova, and we just got the feedback that Villanova is not going to be available for the hours that we want it to be. So as of right now, the only pool space that we have available to us is going to be, it will be adequate for doing our lessons in the morning. But we do not currently have a space for public swim. So Sophocles and I have been working to reach out to other options. We've reached out to Thatcher, Ojai Valley School, Camp Brahma, any pool that we could think of in town that might be willing to give us the time of day. We've been reaching out to people. As of right now, we have not had any luck on that. So what's going in our activity guide as of now is that we're having swim lessons, but as of right now, we don't have any public swim. If that changes, obviously, we'll promote
So
that.
Villanova, you're doing swim lessons in the morning?
Correct.
Got it.
Yes,
Okay.
but as of right now, we do not have any public swim scheduled. If we are able to find a facility, we will do so. But
What about the Oaks, since they're closed
oh,
down?
that's a good idea.
Something that they,
I don't know what that would look like facility upkeep wise, but I will reach out to them. That's a good thought. Thank you. And that's part of the reason I did want to bring it up to you guys to see if you guys have thoughts on that, or if you think of something after this meeting, feel free to let me know.
Have we, since the Weil Academy sometimes uses our facility, have we reached out to the Racket Club to see if they'd be amenable to letting us
I have
some time out?
been in contact with people at the athletic club before, and they have been very not open. But
I'm shocked.
I am very used to being rejected in my job,
Yeah.
asking people for things. So I am happy to reach out again.
I'm sure their members would love to have the extra
Just a
people
thought.
there.
Yeah.
Yes, they would. But we're still
We're
waiting
still
to hear back from
a couple people.
people, the groups that we've
Or
reached out to
some.
that Allison's mentioned. They actually haven't rejected us yet.
Now, what is the deal with is there even a pool up at Matilaha anymore at the old, because the county owns that now, right? So,
Oh, you mean up the hill?
yeah,
I have no idea.
they filled it in.
Oh, a long time ago.
And
Okay.
there's not even a swimming hole in the river bottom anymore. That got filled in with silt.
That's
So
what we could do. We could go, you could take them all up to Wheeler's way up there, 33, and they could go in the swimming.
There's another
Well, we
pool
talked
in
about-
the Highland, or not the Highland, but off of Country.
I used to live in there. That's
yeah.
correct.
They might be, I mean, it doesn't, I don't know how that homeowners association runs it, but
Strictly.
some offset of their revenue
what
might help.
is it? What
Those
is it?
Highland,
Sorry.
Highland apartments and
No.
No.
The track up there where I used to live.
Off
There was
of
a community
Villanova
pool.
Road,
Off of
you
Country
go up
Place.
Country Drive.
Country
Yeah.
Drive. Mhm.
Oh.
It's basically an Olympic-sized pool.
The
that-
very, very end
that I
on
was
the
the only
left.
one out there 90% of the time.
Sorry, what's the name of it again?
It's on the Highland track, so I lived on,
Is that the end of Country Drive?
geez, can't even remember what street it was now.
Oh, end of Country Drive.
Do you know where,
Yeah.
off of Villanova, you take a left onto
Uh-huh.
Country Drive and you go up and it
All
dead
the way at the
ends?
very end.
And
On
it's,
the left.
Oh, yes. Actually, quite
They
a long
also have
time
tennis
ago, I
courts.
went to an event there.
yeah, the tennis plays there during the
It
tournament.
backs up to the Milner Reserve
Yeah.
that was there, that's now owned
It
by.
just,
Okay.
my
Whoever the
use of it
producer
is, I don't remember a lot of people being there.
It's private, it's part of their
It's-
association.
There's
I mean, when I've used
nobody,
it, I'm
Well,
saying that
once-
not a lot of the
virtually
homeowners use
nobody
it.
ever there.
Well, once again,
It's
you
a-
know,
it's a
we-
lead.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep,
Yeah.
just another option.
We are.
As
we
you
will
talked
follow
about, it
every
could be a
lead.
revenue for them, a small, not a large revenue, but a
That's a
revenue
I'd be
nonetheless.
surprised how expensive
Great
pools are to
suggestion.
maintain. I'm sure the association would be interested in hearing it.
Okay, and the Oaks too. I like the Oaks as well.
That's a good
It's
idea.
very,
I'd be
Great
curious whether
location.
there's even water in that pool right now.
Probably
I
not.
think if they
I've
don't
heard-
keep
But-
water, it doesn't it come out?
I've heard that it's not very receptive since it changed ownership back in the day.
Yeah.
They just kinda-
But I think it was changing ownership. Like,
It recently
I
has
don't know.
sold, but
Yeah.
I don't know what the So whether or not they'd be,
Well,
anyway,
we're
just an option.
We're just
Yeah.
asking for
It's
8
worth the
weeks.
Well, those are
Yep.
things to investigate.
We just want 8 weeks,
Yep.
not the whole year.
And we have good news on this youth commissioner, so that's
We do have
exciting.
good news.
Moving on to
Let's
happy
talk
times.
about youth commissioner seats. So we do have 3 applicants. The final day to apply will be tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah,
And we have 3, that's great.
yeah, so 3
So
applicants.
As of Monday, we
And-
could start, the coming Monday, start working on when to schedule that.
Working
and all
on
that.
scheduling, that'll be the clerk to schedule interviews for these 3 applicants.
Yep.
So it'll be exciting to, I believe, we know 2 of them are well fixed or associated with the recreation department as
That's great.
being, yeah, so.
3
we're-
good candidates, that's excellent.
Yeah, we do have 3 good candidates. Next is Michelle Paul's Katie Edwards Gymnastics Exhibition. It's the 40th Michelle Paul's and the 21st Katie Edwards Gymnastics Exhibition. It is very well attended. It's usually standing room only at that event. So if you are interested in coming, the doors open as it says on your agenda at 6 p.m. and the event starts at 7. But
Okay.
if you do actually want a seat, you'll want to come
At 5.
come early. Yeah, come at 5. Doors open at 6. But yeah, there is usually a long line waiting to get in.
We
at
don't have
6
a
o'clock.
Parks and Recreation Commission box that we get to sit in. and,
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
work on that.
Yeah,
We'll put it- we'll put it in the
we will
CIP.
work on
Right,
that.
there we go.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that going to be broadcast, Sophocles?
It will be. Well, it won't be broadcast
recorded,
live.
and
It
then-
will be
and then
recorded
broadcast.
And play it after.
and played after on Channel 10. And we do then offer CDs or sell CDs for a nominal fee to anyone who wants to buy them.
Okay.
What's that?
Start recording events.
Yeah.
An open house,
The open house, our 6th annual open house, Saturday,
Right.
May 18th, just like it says.
okay?
So we invite the public. We will talk about it again at the May.
Make sure the pickleball
commission
people know
meeting.
because they were well attended. You know,
Yeah.
you got the support.
They can rally the troops.
If they wanted to come out, and yeah, they could
little
go on our
table,
list of things
They
to,
could have a booth.
Ryan, you had something to say?
Yeah.
Um,
I'm-
Nice to have people.
I'm-
Again, not to be
Be
a party pooper here, but we don't usually have any outside organizations at
Okay.
our open
Well,
house.
We can
But
discuss that
anyway,
when it
it's
gets back
nice
on the
of you to-
agenda, yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that, but once again,
So this is
I'm the guy who's the party pooper, but it's usually our
Yeah, it's here.
instructors, our
Right.
contractors, it's our 5-a-side celebration. It is a,
I think Ryan has a comment.
oh, yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
yeah. So I mean, this is April, right? So we're gonna have one more meeting like
We
a
are.
week or 2 weeks before the open house.
Yes.
I think the observation last year was that the open house was relatively poorly attended, both
Mhm.
as far as like people and also booths, like
Mhm.
instructors. So I don't know, is there a thought to change anything about how we went about it last year?
Yes. So those were 2 of the big notes from last year, absolutely. So we are working to try and get more instructors there. Obviously, there's only so much we can do on that regard, but we are trying to really chase down our instructors and trying to get them to commit, as well as promotion. We are still a little too far out to do some of those things, but planning to do newspaper, planning to do flyers around town, a little bit more than we
Okay.
have been doing.
Great.
So yeah, I appreciate you keeping that on our radar.
We did
Have a
schools the
blurb on
first year,
Channel 10.
too.
Not yet, but that is a good idea. Thank you.
School.
I think we
schools?
did flyers at the schools the first
Oh,
year.
flyers at the school.
Oh, yeah.
Those are great.
Directly, that were, through the
Yes.
district.
Yeah.
Email blast.
Yeah, we always do email blast and Facebook blast.
Is there
And then
food concessions there, or is it just?
we do free food.
right?
Yeah,
We do,
free
there's
lunch.
pizza, usually a pizza lunch.
And popcorn
Rock
and
climb,
drinks.
we have rock climbing wall, bounce
Raffle?
houses,
The raffle's
the
great,
raffle?
too, yeah.
Yep.
free raffle.
It's a crowd pleaser.
And
I
one,
think too, reaching out to the senior community, to get them more, because we're doing a lot more senior
yeah,
group
Yeah.
projects now than we were.
Yeah. Yeah, we should, because we will have our senior fitness instructor
They have
at the
committed to
event.
do a demo.
Oh, good.
The upstairs workout room will be open, the gymnasium and gymnastics will be there.
And-
So, yeah, we didn't have the kind of turnout from our instructors that we would have liked.
That may be a really good opportunity for some publicity to have the paper the Ojai Valley News do a feature on the senior participation at the rec center. I haven't seen any, not that I've read that paper lately, but I don't remember there being anything in there in that regard in years.
That'd be great.
Right, and yes, and if you want to talk about a real up-and-coming numbers rising kind of program, that senior fitness program,
But I think.
adult fitness program,
Yeah.
is really thriving.
I think
So
Ryan's
that's a
right, though.
great suggestion.
This is
about-
perfect time for feedback, and I think that was all really good feedback, because I think now is the time to think about how to communicate to the public and make sure we have.
Right, because
Yeah,
we
no.
go through a lot of effort to put on like a really nice open house, and
Yeah.
we want everyone to come, and we want, you know, a lot of the programs to be represented there.
So I think all of that was really
Maybe
good
Melissa
feedback.
can bring her horses.
Sure.
I have actually tried to get her to do that, and unfortunately,
pretty
she has
cool.
not been able to. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention to you guys regarding open house is last year we did do a survey. We did that Libby Lawn survey at the open house. If you guys have thoughts on something else that you want to do to really engage people at the commissioner booth, I'm happy to create another survey if you guys have a topic, or if you think of any other creative ideas to engage people. I'd love to hear that feedback and work with you guys on that.
And just as an aside, I'd love to do it as a Survey Monkey and have an iPad,
Yeah, to do it there.
because we capture it and people are often very entertained by doing it in a tech. We could have both, but people like to.
Click.
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
work to either, I can check with our IT guy about iPad or potentially laptop or something
Yeah.
of the sort. Okay.
But,
Okay.
you know, back to the outside groups, I suppose we could entertain that as
Do
a
we have an
possibility.
operating agreement with
Yeah.
them?
No, I don't
Who-
think so.
With pickleball?
You're opening up.
An
Like, do we
operating.
have an agreement for them to use the facilities or anything, or is it just all verbal?
It's just
No.
been public use.
No, it's just.
And the
it's
reason
all-
we,
It's all verbal. There isn't any written agreement, no.
the reason we haven't opened it up to outside organizations is once you do to one, then,
You have to do
then
it
why
together.
not everyone? So we've really wanted to focus on just our
Well, I think that's
activities.
important. That's
Yeah.
why the day is stated, you know, that's what it should be.
Didn't you mention, Sophocles, that you have him in the guide?
He has actually bought an ad in the
Purchased
guide,
it.
but also we have in the front of the guide, there's a section for all community groups and organizations are out there, and so he's being added in to that list of community groups with contact information.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, so now we're on to, sorry, you good?
I don't think, and we
Okay.
don't have any other information or.
So we're
that's
on
it
to
for us.
commissioner committee reports and comments. Does anybody have anything they want to report from a committee work?
Just that
You're-
we're gonna
yes.
take a field trip out to Carpinteria's Pool
Okay.
Aquatic
And
Center.
I remember asking this before, are we connected to or trying to connect with the other faction of the community pool out of the high school?
Yeah, we did.
Wait, what?
You're talking about the
Well, there's another group that's also pushing a community pool around the Nordoff facility. Can-
community or
Well,
Nordoff
both.
pool. Yeah,
Both.
that's Adam Dutter.
Right.
Yeah, that was the person I contacted originally regarding this, and
Right.
got a lot of feedback.
Okay.
Brought it up last meeting.
Okay.
So, I mean,
It just seems silly to have two committees doing the same thing, in my opinion.
yeah, as far as joining them, I don't know that
What?
our interests are really aligned, to be
Okay.
honest.
I think that OUSD, is it, well, Adam's working for OUSD, and is he doing it, my understanding was, the Measure J funds, they were looking at the cost of repairing the pool versus replacing the pool with some of
Right.
those additional funds, correct?
Right.
But is he doing it separate in his own
Community
group,
driven?
or is he doing it, yeah,
As
for
part of a-
OUSD?
It's informal, so it's.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
And they're looking at tennis courts and pool. There's several different options out there for that facility. But I mean, logic to me dictates you're not gonna get both things done. So why not try to combine forces and get one thing done?
Well, I mean, if you guys want to investigate more and come back next month on that, definitely have time to talk about it, if we need to.
Yeah, what we need to do is figure out if that informal committee is able to make decisions, if they're able to even talk to us about it, if, you know.
share what they've done.
Right, and to find out if our interests are aligned 100%.
Well, could you, Eric, could you do that so that we'd have some kind of a general idea? Because I don't know who to contact.
Yeah,
in
I
that
mean, I
area.
can, but like, again, if they're informal, then we
Right.
might be at a standstill.
Okay.
But I mean, we could meet with them. You know, the more.
That's what I
inform-
mean. He may not be able to meet with us because it's an informal group. He may not be authorized.
Oh, gotcha.
They may not be authorized is what I'm getting at, so.
Okay.
Well,
Any-
we can try.
They
But-
can
but
meet
I-
with you, they can't represent
Any-
the school, but
Right.
they can meet with you.
Well, no, yeah, and they have.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, we can't really put it on the books, as comments from the school district. We can't really
Right.
use that information if
Sure.
they're informal.
Okay.
There is, just to finalize this real quick,
Mm-hmm.
there's a huge opportunity here to get the tennis community, the pool community, the pickleball community to get together and build one facility that does all of these things instead of three different people trying to do three different things at triple the cost. I just don't understand that logic.
Well, and I think the
at all.
land is an issue, right? I mean, where are we gonna put it?
Well, sure,
Land
but that's
and
part of the
money.
discussion.
I think, from my perspective, like all things, they start and then they start to coalesce. We're not at the coalescing point yet. There are various different things about, I mean, we've seen other projects happen historically. It isn't always a straight line.
No, but somebody has
So-
to reach out.
Yeah, no, I think that's happening, and there are discussions happening between you and Ad. I mean, there's different parties that are throwing stuff around, and it's just not there yet.
Okay.
Right.
Would that be inaccurate? I mean, so
Yeah.
keep on it and
I mean,
keep the open lines of
again, we need-
communication and,
I gotta talk to Jermaine and I have to talk to Adam and I have to see if our interests are aligned,
Okay.
We share and share alike, but I mean, reality is reality. Everybody wants their piece of time on, and that's a big project to,
no, these are all very big projects, so,
But they have actually decided that they're gonna go forward with
no, they haven't decided, well, they.
the forward.
I think just
The
vetting
only
some
thing
ideas.
that's 100% is that they need to do some
The repairs.
repair work.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be done over the summer.
okay.
Yeah, and it's a lot of money.
It is a very.
It's an
very big-
enormous amount of
It
money.
is.
And a short
So
life.
in a short life, so that's why, going back to what Pat says, I think it would be wonderful if we could somehow combine all our efforts and, have one central place for all of that.
And that may very well fall to the council to reach out to the school district
That
and
would
see
be
if they can
great.
work in partnership.
That
I mean,
would
I
be
don't know, Randy, you can speak to that probably better when you come up, or not. Sorry,
So-
probably didn't see that bus coming.
As far as
Um,
committee reports,
Yeah.
do we have any other committee reports?
Can we ask city staff for an update on number 2 and number 4, the Soul Park and the naming committee, where we're at with that for our next meeting? If they're
The
able
naming
to.
committee is done, right? I think
Yeah,
it just
the
didn't
name-
get
That's
removed.
just, has it been agendized, I guess is the question.
It hasn't.
Has
It's
not.
under,
Okay.
it's in pending.
That's fine.
If we just annex the park, I mean, they're already losing money. If we just park there.
Well, I guess,
Homestead 'em?
Well,
no, I'm just asking if
I'm not-
anything's been
Yeah,
done.
no, I mean, Soul Park got assigned to city staff, but I'm not quite sure what direction you.
Or which city staff?
Right, oh, like what you wanted, right, which city staff and
I
what.
think it
and what
originally
you
had
wanted.
commissioners, and commissioners
It
got
did.
dropped off of
Yeah.
it.
But I think even after that, we had notes about which things, I'll go back to my stuff, that we had given, I think we gave staff some
Yeah.
guidance a couple of months ago about what things to investigate and what questions to ask.
Yeah, we'll
I'll
have
go
to look
and
back at that then. I'm not sure what those
Okay.
specifics were, but we'll look.
Well, I'm asking because I'm just wondering if it involved an opportunity for the city to absorb some of the repair costs associated like with the courts and to, because if the city has a operating agreement with the county and we take that, maybe we take the maintenance and, the repairs on, that is a huge amount of land.
So, well, what I'm hearing is we should agendize Soul Park and have a discussion.
Yes. Well, or at least
Before we
I'd like
do
to
that,
know, I'd
let's-
like to
let's
get
get
an
our
update
questions
from
together.
which city staff has been assigned to that, if any. And if the answer is, nothing, then maybe we do need to reassign some commissioners. Sage and I have been working on the valley-wide, we've met, but maybe it's
You wanna-
something we
we
can
wanna put 'em together?
incorporate. Yeah,
Okay.
I feel like that
All right.
might be something,
I think that'd be fine. I'm fine with that if we want to.
we want to just agendize it for next month.
Mhm.
And perhaps city staff who has been done anything could let us have that information for next month.
And then we can make a recommendation to
I just
change
think,
the committee.
that's the one thing that we're short on. We're short on land, and there's a huge amount of land. I mean, we use it for some equestrian stuff personally, and I see a few baseball practices going on there, and, but otherwise, I don't really see a lot of use going on out there, and it
Okay.
just seems like a huge resource.
So how about this? We will agendize the committee changes,
Mhm.
and we will roll it into that committee once we have it agendized to make
Okay.
that change. Is
Great.
that correct? I think that's what we
So-
need to do.
Putting committee members on that,
Yeah.
you're saying?
Reassigning.
Unless city staff has it all ready to go.
And then once we do that, we could give staff our questions,
Yes.
and then we could work from there. Okay. I think that's a good idea. So are we, anything else, or are we ready to move on? Okay. Randy, you're up. Councilmember Haney?
You have lots of
Okay.
Thank you for waiting.
Yes.
So, we won't kick around pickleball, we've already done that. But you know, so here's my notes on what I just heard, you know, on your sub-commissioner committee reports.
Mhm.
I didn't hear anything from the Valley White Parks District.
Nope.
So you haven't met with anybody, you haven't had any
No, we're working,
conversations?
and we both have homework, and we're both working on our homework.
Yes.
But,
Collecting some data, kind of starting fresh with some new theories.
Just asking.
Yeah.
You know, it's, I just didn't hear anything, that maybe I missed something. Soul Park, city staff, you know, we're doing conjunctive use programming with the school board. Maybe a starting point with Soul Park is conjunctive use programming with that facility.
Can you give me an example of a conjunctive use?
You know, how can we use their tennis courts?
No, what programs do you have in place that we could kind of look at how they're being
They
used?
don't have any programming there.
no, you're asking, she's asking what the city's doing, or
Yeah.
what the city and the school district are currently doing.
You guys tell me, it's
Well,
your commission.
I would tell you they're doing after-school care.
You're saying, what do we
We're
currently
already
have with the
doing
school?
current condi-
Oh, he's talking about our
with
own.
Recreation
Yeah.
programming and their facilities.
Right,
Oh, I see what you're
pottery,
Pottery and
after
after-school.
school.
That's all I'm
Okay.
trying to say is,
Quick
and
start.
I think that
As an
was
example,
whoever came up
yes.
with that idea, it was a great idea.
Mhm.
So all I'm trying to say is, here's another opportunity to get our foot in the door with Soul Park.
Okay.
And you start with, what can we do together? You have a facility, we have programming. So, again, that might take a subcommittee with with the recreation manager, maybe the next manager, and start something moving in that direction. It just, you know, I'm just throwing out ideas when I hear them.
Mhm.
You know, you guys are throwing them out, and I'm just listening, and I'm just taking my little note and add to it. But I think that's how you start. They may not wanna make an agreement to let us run it, okay? But that's still something we should be looking at. But in the interim, why don't we do something with it? You know, they've got an equestrian area in the back that's never used.
Well, it'll be in use next Sunday at 9 a.m. if you'd like to come watch the horse show. But yes, you're right. It's used 4 times a year that I'm aware of,
And
yes.
actually, when I was on the commission, I met with some people in town that actually did horseback riding and did a lot of events. And I took them out there, and they said it would be a great place if someone would rip the sand up in the arena,
Mhm.
so the horses weren't slipping and sliding.
Yes.
But they thought the facility was excellent. And again, what type of programming could we do if we were gonna do something like that?
Yep.
So, you know, it's, how many acres are over there? Lots.
I don't know. It's really large. It's nice.
Okay, and I think, to the community's detriment, it's out of sight, it's out of mind, and you gotta pay to get in. So people don't go there.
I think there's ample parking, and I don't know that it's that far out of town. I think it's the cost that really deters people, paying that $2 for parking.
Yeah, I agree with Randy, it's just out of sight, out of mind.
It's out
I
of
mean,
sight, out of mind.
I mean, people use it for big barbecues,
Right,
then that's about it, and a dog park. And other than that, that's about.
and all the rumors from the history. Oh, they shut it down because some kid took a baseball bat to some guy, and, you know, it's like, you know, that was then and today is now. Let's get into now, let's talk about where we're going rather than where we're, you know, where we've gone, or.
Wait, that really happened?
Everyone's like, huh?
Listen,
Yeah.
I've been here 25 years, that's the rumor I heard, why no one goes there, why they shut down softball programming or baseball programming if something happened.
It
I
did
have no
occur,
idea.
it did occur. I was actually present, but
Wow.
that's not why they shut it down,
Right.
but it did occur.
So,
I go there all the time,
First issue.
but I also have a county pass on my car, so I don't have to pay to get in.
and then Eric, along with, I have Eric on the pool committee, you said they may not have, we may not have like, thoughts on the usage of a new pool?
Well, the school district's gonna think of their own interests naturally as well, you know, they should. And from what I understand informally, that they've tried to approach the city and the city has not been, what's the word I'm looking for? They haven't shown very much interest in
Receptive?
haven't been receptive in sharing costs or in cooperating in something in that regard.
Yeah, well, I haven't heard anything about that. So-
Neither, I mean, I
Also,
don't, informally.
someone from like yourself, maybe they don't know what we're trying to achieve, and so invite them into us. Have them come here, and have them share their world of what they're trying to achieve, and then let's look for the similarities, and let's figure out how to package that. But, I think there's an assumption being made that they're not thinking like us and we're not thinking like them, and so therefore these two sides can never come together. My attitude would be if you don't reach out,
Yep.
or, you know, if you're gonna wait for them.
I agree.
That may never happen.
There's always gonna be assumptions until there's a formal meeting.
Well, it doesn't have to be formal, it can be informal, invite them in.
Well, informally, the people that are on that informal commission, one of them used to be a commissioner here, so he knows what our interests are.
Well, I
Yeah.
think the point though is there's a brand new, as I mentioned earlier, there's a new superintendent over there. Who knows what her ideas may or may not be. Meet with her, have somebody meet with her.
I agree. I think they
Okay.
should be invited here.
Yeah, I'm
So
just
we
saying,
get-
if
Like
someone doesn't know what you're thinking,
Yeah,
it's very difficult for them to.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Coalesce around your ideas, or for you to come to
right.
Oh, yeah, to be honest, I don't even know 100% what our interests are.
We want a pool. It's very simple.
Right, right.
It's real simple. If you
It's
did a
very
mission
simple.
Statement for a swimming pool in this community, that's what it would be, it would be so simple.
Right.
You know, it's, and you don't say children, you don't say adults, you
No.
say our community, we need a community pool.
Community pool is very,
Alright, so, when I heard that our contractors don't wanna come to our open house, I just scratched my head and say, and why isn't it a part of their contract that they have to show up on open house day? So, when these contracts renew, we might wanna put that in the fine print. You will be at our open house.
Well, maybe bold print?
Well,
How do you
and just
do it?
for the record, it's not usually that they don't want to, it's scheduling conflicts and
Well,
such.
so
They
that-
have
that's
a,
mandatory, so schedule yourself, we want you there, you need to be there. It's important to the community that you demonstrate what you're providing to us, for the people that don't know, and it's important for us to demonstrate to the community the type of people that we're hiring and the services and the product that we're producing. It's a win-win.
Yeah.
So for them not to be there, I get it, listen, I get it, it's easy to schedule around it. But for a contractor, they need our community as much as we need them, so it's a win-win. I make it part of the contract. And tumbling, you know, I'm a big fan of the tumbling program, but my granddaughter's 3, so I know I'm gonna go to the 19th and get her interested. But more importantly is, we could take tumbling mats and put them out on the grass. And have them do a tumbling exercise there, because that program is our biggest program. And to take our open house and then to slide it into that room and take them away from all the stuff that's going on out front, those mats are movable.
It-
Set up a section.
Or our old ones.
We have a
that
spare set.
Yeah, we have our
We do have
spare
a
sets
spare
that we use
set.
for
Spare
movie
set
night.
now.
That's a great idea.
they do come out and, they do
I-
come out and do a demonstration and such.
Have some mats and have them do some tumbling.
I totally agree, because the things that are outside people get, it's hard to move them to other locations we found
Yeah.
over the years.
But as Allison pointed out, the gymnasts do come out and do a presentation. But yeah, we could move the mats out there.
All I'm
Yep.
saying, I'm just giving you my thoughts.
Okay,
How you
sure.
achieve them, I'll leave
Yes,
it
Just
the
a-
old mats.
okay.
But I just think it's a great idea. Here's the other thing. I went 2 years ago, well, maybe I came last year, and I parked at the far end of the park and walked across. Okay? And I think soccer was going on in the morning,
It is.
Mhm.
okay?
It's their final day. It's their
Five-a-side.
Finals of five-a-side, yes.
Pardon me, so it seems like we might wanna do something in conjunction with them.
We did last year.
We have the past few years, they do
Yeah.
their trophy ceremonies at the event on our stage and we bring them in.
So that's all I was thinking about, because I remember walking across that, and all the soccer people were over here, and all of our people were over here.
It's
And if
They all
it's
generally
like,
come over,
we're
yeah.
both using the facility on the same day, why aren't we intermingling?
And the last 2 years, I think we've done that?
3
3 years? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Most of them, because they used to do, the very first year we did this, we didn't even really connect that it was on the same date. And Five Aside, they used to get their own bounce houses and they would have their own sound system and they would do their event. After the first year, we got smart. And so it is their closing ceremony celebration is our event. I'm sorry?
What's our next sport after soccer?
Summer.
Baseball?
Summer
camp, summer
program.
camp.
We don't do anything until
We don't have
fall.
a, we have a,
And
yeah,
we
it's
don't
not
have
till
sports in the
fall.
summer other than our camps.
Well, we have, well, that's,
Softball
well,
or baseball program?
we have softball,
Adult.
adult softball.
We don't have youth sports leagues in the summer.
We have a,
That'd be another opportunity to have them come on board, maybe do a late sign up or an early sign up or do something. So again, that we're getting more children in on that facility on that day. That's what you want. You want children and parents.
Well, and we do have a good record of signing people up for camps that day.
we do.
And summer activities. It does a good job of that.
Okay, because it's past my bedtime. I think, those are all the notes I had, but I just want,
Okay.
I always like to say this, I really enjoy coming to commission meetings, and every commission is unique. And this commission is a lack of a better term, freewheeling.
No, it's a good term.
You're all
For recreation.
You're all interactive, you're all thoughtful, and you're all positive. But you're all moving like, you're all moving and moving at the same time. So sitting back here, and then I go to Arts Commission, and they're very structured. Or I go to Historic, and it's the same thing. So I just want to say, you guys are, and it's always been this way.
It has.
Has
Always
it?
been interactive.
Oh, interesting.
We just want to be interactive here, we just can't get a crowd for some reason.
That's right. We have to create our own excitement.
But, great job as usual. Sophocles, I don't know what we're gonna give you, but it won't be enough.
Oh, that's
I
very kind,
agree.
that's very
What a
kind
great
of
thing
you.
to say.
Very
All
kind
the
of you.
services and-
Well-
and,
Absolutely.
more of this.
Well,
Yeah,
I
I
appreciate
know.
that. I feel the same about the city. You know, I made my way from the East Coast to the West Coast a little over 30 years ago. I've lived and worked almost lived my whole life in Ojai and worked my whole life in Ojai. So it's been a privilege actually to be in this town, but to work with the people I have at the recreation department. And honestly, I'm only as good as the people around me. We have a great crew at the recreation department, the people there, families that come there every day. And while we sometimes maybe have some of our disagreements in this space, that department is as strong as ever. It will continue to be that way. And I'm glad I was a part of it for the 16 years I was. And I know it'll just continue to thrive because I'm just the one person in the front, but the people that are on the ground and work behind the scenes are what make the department the success. I can only take a small portion of credit for that.
What I think
Yeah.
it starts with community, and that this community is really evolved.
Yeah,
And as a direct result of that is that it requires our city employees to be really involved, and you are, and
Thanks.
you are,
Yeah.
and we are.
yeah.
And the commissions just accentuate that, all of them. So you guys have done a great job. You've done an incredible job.
Thanks.
And let's see who the next,
Yeah, who the next
throw your
lead
hat in the
is.
ring and let's see who's the next,
Yeah.
Batter up.
recreation
Yeah,
manager.
that's
and
it,
batter up.
yeah.
Uh,
But it's
Randy-
all, yeah, thank
Andy,
you.
a
Thank you.
question on that note, is the commission involved at all in the selection process?
Hiring process.
Yeah.
More likely not. It's because it's an employee interview,
Mhm.
Yeah.
there's some, not secrets, but what's the word?
No bias or, well, not even
Confidential
bias,
information.
not even,
Medical would be
I don't know if
HIPAA,
it's
right?
conflict
Not
of
even
interest.
part of it. What's gonna happen is the city manager, or the assistant city manager, and probably someone from a recreation department somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, they'll have
will
the-
sit down and conduct the interview. And actually, we wouldn't want the commission to influence the next person on it, the council shouldn't. You know, what we should do is hope that we get the best.
Best
Right.
And that person who comes to interview presents them, him or herself, the best.
Is there going to be a time for the commission to give feedback to staff before that happens? Because typically they're arranging questions and doing all that. All I can say is my history and tenure on the commission, past hires have had some involvement.
So I think.
So that's
I
just-
think what you might, as chair,
Mm-hmm.
you might be able to sit down with Sophocles and Steve and maybe review the questions that might be
Okay.
on the list. And maybe you wanna have some questions that are pertinent to the actual department and what they're doing.
Yeah.
And see if any of these applicants are actually doing their homework and researching what we're doing and how we're doing it and when we're doing it and how they might enhance what we've already have. So, yeah, I think you might be able to do that. I'm not sure
Okay,
what will come of it, but as chair, I think you could ask them.
okay.
Okay. All right, guys.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks,
you very
Randy.
much. Thank you.
All right, so now we're on to future meeting dates and agenda items. So definitely coming back next month is pickleball. We're gonna continue the discussion. The date, sorry.
Yeah, and what, do you have a specific, topic or as far as pickleball goes, what do you want?
May,
Well, court availability was gonna be the one for you to, court
Court
availability?
availability?
It's May 2nd.
May 2nd?
Yeah, May 2nd.
I think that the recommendation we'd be discussing is proposing a dedicated court at Libby Park
Okay.
for pickleball.
Yeah, and how much would that impact? Is it feasible for the rec department to hold the programs they're holding with one less court?
Right, and you wanted you did want a calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sort of,
I
yeah.
understand,
Like
yeah.
Yeah.
when it's available, when it's not.
Yeah. When are all of the courts in use at the same time?
Right,
Yeah.
that's a great suggestion.
So, yeah, the timing, line options, chalk, spray-on chalk, things that are permanent, those questions.
Cost, maybe?
And the cost associated with different options. I don't know if you go to meet with other groups or ask questions, but whatever investigation you think would be useful that will answer, questions that are gonna come up that'll help us
Yeah, because,
come up with the best solution.
yeah, and even, right, because even off of his paperwork, they talked about dedicated courts and all of that, and then some non-dedicated, I don't remember the terminology for it, but some that were.
Multi-use.
Multi-use, yeah.
Like, I think I'll visit Juana Maria just to see what
Yeah,
it's
'cause
really
it's- yeah.
close off of Kimball, and just to see, just to have an idea. Perhaps we should reach out to some of the tennis professionals that might be able to give us some insight on why the double lines are, if they're able to use them in Ventura and in Santa Barbara. I'm just wondering, are our tennis players extra picky, or is it an actual?
Well, I think it's,
I would just like to know.
It's change. I mean,
This is yeah, and this is a big tennis town, and we, out of respect for that group, they will certainly, like this group,
Show
will
up
be
in the-
invited and show up. The tennis community will be here as well.
And just to kind of piggyback on that.
Yep.
In all reality, it's a big tennis town 1 month a year. The rest of the time, it's a normal tennis town with a tennis program.
Yeah.
Is all it really is.
Well, yeah, but we have, we do have a big adult tennis contingent
Very large.
and a youth, we've got 60 to 70 kids participating every 6 weeks in our tennis program. So
Yeah.
it's not all that small.
No, but as I go through the park
Year
often
round.
with my grandson, right, and oftentimes it's a ghost town.
Sure. I would agree. There's plenty of time for upper court, lower court in the mornings, especially at the upper courts in the mornings where it's.
And this is all stuff we can talk about next
So-
week.
Yes.
I
but
digress.
we'll get the
Yeah,
recommendation on there,
And then
discuss and make a
Soul Park.
recommendation. And then we would like to recommend to roll the Sewell Park Committee into the Valleywood Parks District and discuss Sewell Park as to questions and actions we might like to take.
Yes.
Those are the 2 items, so that's 3 items. So pickleball, CIP, Sewell Park Committee rolling in,
Potentially, possibly.
possibly, recommend to roll the Sewell Park Committee into the Valleywood District
Couldn't we
Committee.
just vote on rolling them together right now and?
It's not agendized.
It's
though.
not agendized. So we're agendizing it. We're
And we
loose,
may
but,
not, I mean, I don't wanna bog down the Soul Park if they're making progress by putting,
Yeah.
the valley-wide is a huge thing, and
yeah.
I don't wanna bog it down, but I'd like to know where we're at.
Well, and some of the questions are going to be similar questions.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay, so that's the 3 items we have for next month?
Oh, I counted 4, but, okay.
Okay.
Good. I'll review the.
Okay,
Like
we'll
I
talk.
usually do, I'll review the tape.
Okay.
And you and I'll talk.
Anything else from anybody? We're good?
Is Wednesday?
Okay,
the day
Good.
you meet?
we're adjourned.